sijui testi nipatie 27 sound testing 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 sound check. Microphone testing. Sound check. 1 2 mic testing. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 sound check. Microphone testing. 1 2 3 microphone testing. 1 2 3 2 1 sound check. 1 2 3 4 5 sound testing. 1 2 3 3 2 1 sound testing. 1 2 3 3 2 1 microphone testing. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 microphone testing. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 sound check. Recording room sound testing. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 microphone testing. 1 2 3 3 2 1 sound check. 1 2 3 3 2 1 212. Weka ngoja nitakwambia weke 213 ngoja tu. Weka 2 nenda 213 kubali. Utaweka 214. Cheza na hiyo tu haraka. Aenda pole pole. Sound testing. 1 2 3 3 2 1 Kiboshi. Sound testing. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 microphone testing. 1 2 3 3 2 1 sound check. 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1 sound check. Microphone testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sound check. Mic testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Mic testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sound check. My main chamber, National Assembly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Loud and clear. Mic testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Sound check. Sijagusa sound something. Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Sound check. Sound testing. Microphone testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Jeff, nipe nafasi. Matangazo ya moja kwa moja kutoka Bunge la Taifa leo ikiwa ni Jumanne alasiri tarehe 18 mwezi Februari mwaka 2020. Bunge la Taifa linatarajiwa kujadili utaratibu wa kujadili miswada na hoja za aina mbalimbali wakati wa kikao hiki cha 4 cha Bunge la 12. Kumbuka pia msikilizaji, matangazo haya yanakujia kupitia runinga yetu ya KBC Channel 1. Jina langu ni Tilio Ismail Marco na hoja ya kwanza inahusu utaratibu wa kujadili miswada iliyowasilishwa na vyama vya kisiasa au kamati za bunge. Kwa sasa msikilizaji, namwona spika wa Bunge la Taifa Justin Muturi ameingia ukumbini na moja kwa moja kama ilivyo ada na desturi anaelekea kuchukua nafasi yake katika ukumbi wa Bunge la Taifa. Ila kwanza msikilizaji ataongoza wabunge kwa maombi. Hii ni KBC Radio Taifa, na kumbuka pia unatazama matangazo haya kwa njia moja kwa moja kupitia runinga yetu ya KBC Channel 1. Sasa ni wakati wa maombi.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders in Parliament for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under deliberation in so just and faithful manner as to promote your honor and glory, that will advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests are commended to our church. Amen.
Ni sauti yake spika wa Bunge la Taifa Justin Muturi akiongoza wabunge kwa maombi. Punde si punde kikao kinaelekea kuanza, ila kwanza spika atabainisha iwapo idadi ya kutosha ya wabunge imetimizwa ili kikao hiki kiweze kuanza rasmi. Kumbuka jinsi nilivyokujuza ni kwamba unatazama pia matangazo. Channel 1. Itakapotimu saa 10 tutakuletea matangazo ya bunge la Senate, ikiwa hivi sasa ni saa 8 na dakika 31. Hoja ya kwanza jinsi nilivyokujuza ni kuhusu utaratibu wa kujadili miswada iliyowasilishwa na vyama vya kisiasa au kamati za bunge.
Administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honourable members, this communication number 3 of 2020. It relates to the guidance of the House on 2 Senate bills. Honourable members, you may recall that on November 12, 2019, I conveyed to the House a message from the Senate regarding the passage of the Commission on Administrative Justice Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2019, and the National Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bill number 31 of 2018. Honorable members, following the first reading of the 2 bills on November 13, 2019, I did forward the bills to the technical offices pursuant to Standing Order 143, Clause 2, which provides as follows, and I read. Following first reading, the Speaker shall within reasonable time pronounce his or her opinion contemplated under Article 114, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Close the quotes. Honourable members, having received a brief on the matter from the relevant technical offices, among them the budget office, I have made the determination that the said Senate bills are money bills within the meaning of Article 114 of the Constitution. The two bills therefore stand referred to the Budget and Appropriations Committee of this House for consideration and advice on the manner in which the House ought to proceed with them, pursuant to the provisions of Article 109, Clause 5 and 114 of the Constitution, as read together with our standing order number 143. Honourable members, the House is thus accordingly guided. I thank you.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, February 18th, 2020. 1. Treasury Memorandum on Public Accounts Committee Report for the financial year 2015-2016 from the National Treasury. 2. The National Government Budget Implementation Review Report for the first quarter for the financial year 2019-2020 from the Office of the Controller of Budget. 3. Recommendation on the third basis for revenue sharing among county governments for the financial year 2020, 2021 to 2024/2025 from the Commission on Revenue Allocation. And number 4, report on the deployment of the Kenya Defence Forces in West Pokot County from the Ministry of Defence. Number 5, the annual reports and financial statement in respect of the following institutions for the year that ended 30th June 2018. Kenyatta National Hospital, Kibabii University, University of Nairobi, National Communications Secretariat, Tom Mboya University College, and Privatization Commission. 6, the annual report and financial statement in respect of the following institutions for the financial year 2016-2017. The Kenya Accountants and Secretaries National Examination Board, KESNEP, and the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honourable members, report number 8, Treasury Memorandum on Public Accounts Committee Report for the financial year 2015-2016 from the National Treasury, I think should go to the Public Accounts Committee because this is the traditionally known as the Treasury Memorandum on Implementation. And therefore, I would be keen to hear from the Public Accounts Committee their report of how the National Treasury has implemented those recommendations of that year to be useful, even as the Public Accounts Committee continues to consider the report that they are currently considering. The National Government Budget and Implementation Review report for the first quarter of the financial year 2019-2020, I think there should be sufficient copies to go to each departmental committee because this is a crucial period. You are considering the budget policy statement, and I'm sure many ministries and departments will be appearing before you, and I think it is important to look at how it is they have implemented the first quarter, even as they come before you seeking for more resources. The third report, that is the third basis for revenue sharing among county governments for the financial years 2020 to 2021 up to 2025 is tabled or laid before the table of this House for purposes of information for the time being, honourable members, because if you look at the provisions of Article 217 of the Constitution, I think it is the Senate that ought to have the first bite of these recommendations so that whatever decisions they arrive at, they will present to you. And if you look in that article, if you are to disagree with the Senate, you need 2/3 of yourselves to disagree with the recommendations or the report from the Senate. Remember, I'm sure the Honorable John Bundy is quite comfortable with this because he knows, he has argued in the past that after this report is adopted, it means that maybe the CRA may not be doing much up to 2025, unless maybe doing research. But this is just for information, members, so that our committees don't begin looking at these recommendations, because as per the Constitution, it is the Senate that should bring their report to us so that we can then see what it is that they have said regarding the recommendations from the CRA. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Murugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 33(1) of our standing orders, I rise to seek leave for the adjournment of the House for purposes of discussing a matter of urgent and national importance on the recent locusts invasion and incursion in the country. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we speak, Kenya has experienced the worst locusts invasion in the last 70 years. These are creatures that have invaded the country. They are now to be found in more than 20 counties throughout the Republic. The locusts have caused untold loss, great suffering to the people, and we anticipate that soon and very soon there is going to be acute shortage of food and pasture for our livestock. It is for this reason, and because the government and its agencies must put in place measures to ensure that the further spread of these insects and the total eradication of the same is actually actuated. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to seek leave so that we can adjourn the House in order to deliberate on these very weighty matters and also come up with a formulation of solutions and chart a way forward, including what will happen to those farmers who have already suffered loss and damage. I beg to move.
Well, we would require you to have support. Yes, you have the support.
Yes.
Honorable Murugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I only hope that the solutions you come up with don't include taking of photographs of the insects.
No. We will come up with the best solution because our people are crying all over across the country. We really have, and we have to be compensated also. No. Yeah, that includes prayers, as the leader of majority says. Thank you.
Very well. Having raised the requisite numbers in support, even though it's not a notice of motion, I direct that the House shall, you be around, so the House, to move the House to, to adjourn to debate the matter at 5:30 p.m. or such earlier time as the House may find itself capable of, in view of the other businesses that may be there, but certainly not later than 5:30. But should the House have concluded the rest of the other businesses appearing on the order paper, then you can debate, the House can rise to debate, to discuss this. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question is by the member for Baringo Central, Joshua Kandie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to ask question number 001-2020, and it is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure and Housing and Urban Development. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the cause of delay in construction of Changamwe roundabout along Kibarani, Mombasa Road in Mombasa County, whose completion has been pending for over 3 years? 2. What measures, I am a national leader, so I am
Yes, you can ask a question.
Yes. What measures have been put in place by the ministry to ensure that the said project is completed, considering its importance to the tourism sector in Kenya? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, I believe the member for Changamwe will be available to assist you in discussing the matter. Maybe for Changamwe. If the member of Changamwe hasn't realized that, then somebody has come to your aid. Honorable Mwinyi, you want to say something? Why are you moving away from where you are seated?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What is happening? Give him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Indeed, the honorable member is a national leader, but courtesy demands that if he has such an intention, he should actually have informed me as well. But anyway, it is true that there has been some delay in the construction of the said road, and we appealed to the relevant ministries, and they came down. We inspected the ongoing roadworks, and we are not very satisfied that the work is moving at the right pace, but at least there is some improvement at the moment. The work is moving on.
Very well, Honorable Mwinyi, that's okay.
But he is right.
The member for Baringo Central is helping you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you can relax. You can relax. He's assisting you. Yes. Next question, which indeed is a resubmission. Member for Lamu County, Captain Rueda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question 002.
Sorry, the first question will be responded to before the Transport Committee. Yes, proceed.
Question to the Cabinet Secretary for Land. Following a land survey carried out by the Ministry in January 2019 and later reviewed on 20th August 2019 in Vumbe area of Lamu East Constituency, Lamu County, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the report of the subdivision exercise and the number of plots arrived at? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, to be replied before the Committee on Lands. Next question by a nominated member, Honorable Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to ask question number 003 of 2020, directed to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury and Planning. And it reads, 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the latest update on the undisclosed funds held in foreign bank accounts outside Kenya, including in Switzerland, Japan, and the United Kingdom, and the details of the account, the principal amount held, and the interest earned? 2, in view of the numerous past undertakings made by various government agencies regarding recovery? When will the government publish the names of persons with undisclosed and illicit money held in foreign bank account? 3, what is the progress of the tax amnesty issued to Kenyans with such undisclosed and illicit monies in foreign bank accounts by the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury in the 2017-2018 budget statement? And lastly, 4, what is the tangible measures is the government putting in place to stop any future illicit money transaction in secret foreign accounts? Mr. Speaker, this is the second time I'm asking this question. You remember mid last year I raised this question and I've never received any response from the executive. So I would like your intervention, given that there are so many other cases of such questions which have been ignored by the government side. It is important for us to get replies to the questions that we ask in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the question will be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Finance and Planning, and I can see the chairman is present in the chamber. So you just need to prioritize and keep reminding him. The Honorable Limo is here. Pursue him. If it is not responded to, as you allege, then you raise it on the floor of the House, so that the House can then help you as a House. Yes, majority.
Speaker, I will talk to Honorable Lima and the Minister, but if you look at that question, he's saying undisclosed. So, they are not even disclosed. So how do you find a list of undisclosed? We need to be very... The question is, I look at it, but we will tell the Minister if he has a way of finding undisclosed to bring it. But I think I'll sit with the Honorable Otsotsi. We agree before the Minister comes on... Yes, because they are not undisclosed, so...
Well, the Honorable Otsotsi, I'm sure he should expect what kind of answer? Since you have said it's undisclosed. So maybe it has been disclosed to him, or he has a way of peeping into those accounts. But nevertheless, I do not possess the facts or any ideas about where those undisclosed accounts are, but you appear to say that they are in Switzerland, Japan, and the United Kingdom. So, but you will deal with it when the Cabinet Secretary appears. Last question, member for North Imenti, Honorable Rahim Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the question number 004 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on the number of roads in Meru County under the national government whose construction has been completed to bitumen standard, including cost and length in the last 3 years? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary also state the number of roads that are under construction to bitumen standard and those under procurement costing more than 50 million shillings in Meru County under the national government and in particular in North Imenti constituency? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary also list the road contracts that have been finalized, including the variations, if any, in Meru County? 4, what is the progress of construction of Meru Town Bypass and when is it expected to be completed? Mr. Speaker, this is a question I asked last year, but I never got a reply, so I'm repeating it, and I hope by the time I get the reply, the Meru bypass will have been finished. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I indicated that the last 3 questions were resubmitted at the commencement of this session, this 4th session. Therefore, it's true that you are This is the second time you're asking the question. It will be responded to before the Transport Committee. Within that same order,
pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the departmental committee Article 53, 1B of the Constitution provides that every child has a right to free and compulsory basic education. Further, Article 55A of the Constitution provides that the state shall take measures, including affirmative programs, to ensure that youth access relevant education and training. Honorable Speaker, since January 2020, the Teacher Service Commission has transferred more than 3,000 non-local teachers from the counties of Wajir, Mandera, and Garissa County. Honorable Speaker, it is of great concern that Teacher Service Commission is acting in negligence of duty and continues to infringe the constitutional right of thousands of pupils in northeastern Kenya. The transfer of teachers has led to delayed implementation of competency-based curriculum, low primary school to secondary school transition rates, and delayed implementation of important policies in the education sector in this region. Honorable Speaker, it is on account of these ongoing challenges occasioned by the transfer of non-local teachers from northeastern region, I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on the following. 1, what measures has the Ministry of Education and Research put in place to address teachers' crisis in the region? 2, to provide a list of teachers transferred from the northeastern region and the criteria used. 3, what were the reasons for the withdrawal and the transfer of non-local teachers, and whether the Office of the Inspector General of Police had issued security instructions to the TSC board for withdrawal of teachers from the region. To provide, 4, to provide the TSC board deliberations with regard to this matter, including the minutes and other records available. Honorable Speaker, it is my wish that the committee inquires into this matter and tables a report to this House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable members, I can see some of you with their hands raised up. There's no debate. Is a request for statement, and if you carefully listen to the Honorable Kolosh, the statement is understanding order number 44-2C. Ordinarily, such statements are supposed to be sought on Thursday afternoons, not later than 3 p.m. But the Honorable Kolosh approached me, and given the issues that he has raised in that request, I considered that it was necessary that the matter be addressed with the urgency that it deserves, and therefore waived the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2C, so that the statement may be sought today, being a Tuesday. And therefore, having done that, I cannot go beyond to allow comments by members who are raising up their hands. What I would want to do is to direct that, because this is a serious matter, and I'm happy that the Honorable Chairman of the Committee on Education, the Honorable Mele, is in the chamber, and is something that requires urgent resolution. Honorable Meli, how soon do you think this can be done?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a matter of national concern. It's a very emotive issue and an issue that concerns the children of this country and the lives of our teachers. I think I will ask the relevant agency, the Teacher Service Commission, to appear before the committee by next week. I'll be able to table it.
In fact, Honorable Meli, honorable members, this matter, as I've indicated, indeed is a serious one. It's a matter that requires very, very urgent resolution, because one agency of government cannot purport to say that there is insecurity without the coordination of the others. And therefore, Honorable Meli, I am directing that the following institutions and or persons heading them appear before your committee. 1, the Cabinet Secretary for Education. 2, the Secretary to the Teacher Service Commission. 3, the Inspector General of Police. Inspector General of Police. Those 3 at least must appear before your committee. Latest Tuesday, so that you can come and brief the House and the country. And the persons directed are not supposed to send representatives. They should appear in person. It's not it is a very serious matter. The Cabinet Secretary, the CEO of Teacher Service Commission, and the Inspector General of Police should appear before the Departmental Committee on Education to come and explain those circumstances, because it is only fair that the 3 of them appear before members of Parliament, because this is one of the key functions under Article 95 to discuss, deliberate, and resolve issues of concern to the people. So, Honorable Meli, if your committee is not, are you comfortable with Tuesday?
Yes, I think we are comfortable, Honorable Speaker, because this is a very serious matter which we need to resolve as soon as possible. So Honorable
Meli, don't answer that one, because you have not even had, you have not had them.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, we shall communicate immediately as per your directive, and therefore we'll ask the 3 institution representative officers to appear before our committee. Thank you.
Very well, very well. It's ordered. Honourable members, before we proceed, allow me to recognize the presence of students and pupils from the following institutions. Those from Aldai Girls High School, Aldai constituency, Nandi County. Those from Peponi School, Ruiru constituency, Kiambu County. Those from Theta Secondary School, Juja constituency, Kiambu County. And those from Ole Sultan Primary School, Gilgil constituency, Nakuru County. And they are all welcome to observe the proceedings in the National Assembly this afternoon. So, the honourable members, also, I wish to recognize the staff of the Parliament of Uganda who are on a study visit to Kenya and to the Parliament of Kenya, who are in the Speaker's gallery. They too are welcome to observe the proceedings in the National Assembly. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion. Limitation of debate on bills sponsored by parties or committees.
Sorry, before you move, I can see the father of the house is almost on his knees. I see the member for Nyando has want an intervention.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek your direction on a matter that is very important to the members of this House. We are facilitated by the liaison department to have those who also facilitate our work on the ground. In the last quarter, Kenya Revenue Authority did introduce another punitive requirement that before returns are submitted, the KRA certificate or compliance certificate must be annexed. Mr. Speaker, even though there are most constituencies that are in line with that requirement, it takes forever to receive that certificate itself. Up to now, most constituencies have not been paid so that they can, in retrospect, pay their workers. And that delay has occasioned lots of problems to the people who serve us and work for us. They have children to take to school, they have food to buy, they have families to take care of, but up to now, Mr. Speaker, we are heading into another new quarter when this prevailing quarter or the current quarter has not been paid. Mr. Speaker, we need your direction. It is not the problem of constituencies to delay submission of those returns. It behoves KRA for constituencies that do the right thing should be provided with this certificate in good time. But then our people are now meant to suffer because of a problem that lies with Kenya Revenue Authority. Mr. Speaker, we seek your direction, we seek your assistance, because all the members in this House know exactly what we are talking about and have become victims to this prevailing circumstance. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I hope the Honorable John Olagoluoch, you want to also weigh into this one, and you know it is administrative.
Mr. Speaker, I do know it's administrative, but what Honorable Wanyando has said is actually the truth, but not the whole truth. The matter is, there are some constituencies like Kisumu West that complied and got certificates early this month, but up to now, they have not received the second quarter. In fact, this morning I was talking to the Director of Finance and asked why. I think even for those who have complied, the problem is exchequer remittance to the PSC. So it's a serious problem, Mr. Speaker. We have got staff in our constituencies who are being evicted. Some of their children are being sent out of school, and some are being taken to CRB because they are not able to pay their loans on checkoff. It's a serious issue, Mr. Speaker.
Well, honour members, I'm sure the Clerk of the National Assembly, who is not in the chamber, has heard you. I am aware that that matter had been raised by one of the commissioners this morning and is being addressed. But I will direct the clerk to give me a brief on the matter so that I'm able to report tomorrow afternoon. There's no need of a kamukunji. These are but you are dealing with the BPS. You are dealing with the BPS. I thought the answer is in your hands. The answer is in your hands. The Honorable John Bandy, the answer is in your hands. This is the right time to deal with these matters once and for all. Because we may not, even if unless members want to raise theirs, but please, it's good to also know the issues in advance so that if somebody can write them down, so that then when we come for the Kamukunji, we know what it is that we are going to discuss. Yeah. Honorable, all of you want to discuss this? No, but it's not good to discuss things in futility. I know my directive is going to be implemented. So the clerk is going to deal with this matter. By the time I leave the chair, I'm sure I'll get I'll get an answer. Yes. I know I'll get an answer. I'm aware of that. Even that has, my attention has been drawn to those things just today, this morning. Because many of you have got ways of communicating, and some of those things have actually reached me, but only this morning. Please, honourable members, just, you know, let's not, let's deal with business. So, Leader of Majority. Leader of Majority is, you're moving the motion? Very well.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 97.4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills sponsored by a committee, the Leader of Majority Party or the Leader of the Minority Party be limited as follows. A maximum of 45 minutes, and I said maximum of 45 minutes for the mover. You can move it in less than 45, but that is the maximum in moving, and 15 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking except the leaders of the majority and the minority party, who will have 15 minutes each if the bill is not sponsored by either of them. By either of the party, and priority of speaking will be accorded to the Leader of Majority Party, the Leader of the Minority Party, the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, in that order. So, Speaker, this is what we usually, and I'm sure today we need to spend less time. What we are doing from order number 8 all the way to, I think, order number 16 is just to set the rules of this session, how we shall deal with the bills, how we shall deal with motions, how we shall deal with the instruments that come before the House. So, and this one is particularly dealing with a bill, and I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, those of us who served in the 10th Parliament, Honorable Mbandi will recall, that debate on bills and sessional papers were not limited during that time. The House could discuss a bill until we don't get somebody who is ready to contribute. And some members, like Honorable late Martin Shikuku from Butere constituency, the Speaker could speak for a week or more on a bill because he was a very active and robust member of Parliament. If you go to the Hansard, you will see Martin Shikuku could speak for a whole week. He begins from Tuesday to Thursday and still has a remaining balance of time the next week. And this I found it in the Hansard. You know, the Hansard of the House, Mr. Speaker, is a very rich history. If you want to hear the voice of Tom Mboya, the late Tom Mboya, Jaramogi Oginga, sometimes, you know, when we are not busy in the House, it's good members to go to the Hansard department and say, can I listen to the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta on this date? What did he say? You know, brilliant people like the late Robert Ouko, Serenay, and the rest. So I found out that Honorable late Martin Shikuku will speak for a week on a matter, on a bill. And Parliament had few members then, Mr. Speaker. But what was amazing is that those members still found time, substance to debate for long without repeating themselves. Speaker, it's good we start on very good notes. And we have agreed, we have researchers and we have PAs. It is in your interest to make sure that you speak. And that's why this is called a debating chamber. You know, it's not a chamber for anything else. So you can use the research department of Parliament, you can use committee clerks and the legal department and legislative department to prepare for you notes, sit with them. So that at the end of the day, you don't contribute by repeating. Here you will find, Mr. Speaker, a member contributes, like Honorable Baya of Kaloleni, Kilifi North. And then, you know, I started up and said, I exactly repeat what Honorable Baya said. I mean, Honorable Rabaya is different from Honorable Duale. I mean, the public are watching. Particularly, there's a lot of interest in the Speaker in the National Assembly. I remember when the Speaker of Tanzania came, he said, Tanzanians love watching the National Assembly of Kenya more than their own parliament. It's because this is a very vibrant house. So, because of that, let us make sure that we give very good food for thought. Vibrant, you know, and we have a very vibrant Speaker. So that and our house is very lively. But you know, you don't come and, so this is setting the rule. You must speak. Mr. Speaker, coming back, Mr. Speaker, so as long as there is the rules, so I'll only move this. I have given all the other bills to different colleagues here, so that the motions to different colleagues here. So this afternoon we spend less time, but it's good to know from here when there'll be a bill next week, how much time is allocated to the chair, how much to the mover in replying to the leadership, to the members, so 10 minutes for members, 45 minutes for the mover in moving, maximum 15 minutes for replying. Mr. Speaker, the other thing I've seen is you cannot donate replying time. Speaker, I need you when you meet your colleagues, the Speaker's panel. We must enforce this. There's no way in the standing orders where when I am called to reply, I say I want to donate. So I think this year we should stop that culture. So instead of donating, please let us all debate that bill before the mover is called to reply. So by the time he's replying, he is bringing a harmonized view of all what the members said. So, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, this is just a procedural motion on the limitation of debate on bills sponsored by parties or committees. I beg to move and ask my Deputy Honorable Jimmy to second.
Honorable Ngwenyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say a word or two about my experience in this parliament. When I joined parliament, in the 7th parliament, that's when Kina Shikuku, Kina Orengo, were people who could speak for even 2 weeks. It's one time, I really wanted to contribute on a major motion touching on the coffee production in the country. But Mr. Speaker, Honorable Shikuku talked for an entire week. The following week, he started again. I had to complain to the Speaker, Kabaro, that how can that one person speak here for 2 weeks? When in fact, I want to also put my input. But I was told I was a mono, and therefore, I should not raise that kind of question. But with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Second.
Honourable members, I propose the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 97-4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party, be limited as follows. A maximum of 45 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Say the desire of the House that I put the question. Very well, honourable members, I put the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 97, subsection 4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party be limited as follows. A maximum of 45 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, if the bill is not sponsored by the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall, if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that priority in speaking, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes, if the bill is not sponsored by either of them, and that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party, leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as are contrary opinion, the ayes have it. Next. Honorable Shirley. Sorry, before you move, Honorable Shirley, I see members who have placed interventions. One of them, I can see the Honorable Member for Igembe South, John Paul Mwirigi. You have an issue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask for your guidance. In this House, Mr. Speaker, we have the leader of majority and the leader of minority. And in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, we have the independent candidate. Where are we counted, Mr. Speaker?
You are independent.
For the leadership, Mr. Speaker, because the ruling political party, Mr. Speaker, it has the majority leader. The minority political party, Mr. Speaker, it has the minority leader, Mr. Speaker.
But there cannot be, Honorable Mwirigi, there cannot be a leader of minority, because a leader of independence, because every independent, I think the 14 of you, each of you are on your own. But you can be adopted. In parliamentary practice, the independents are at liberty to even vote whichever way they choose. But if you choose to be adopted like a baby oryx, you can be. The independents are independent. Each independent is independent on their own. So you cannot lead any other person. There cannot be a leader of the independents, because then that is like forming another party. Because you are independent in your own right. So, sorry, Honorable Mwirigi, if you wanted to have a leader of yourselves, of the 14 of you, it's not possible. So you can vote whichever way you choose on any bill, because you are independent, including choosing not to vote at all, or go to relax in the lounge. You know, it's a way of representation as well. So there will not be any such position of leader of independence. Honorable Shirley.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to move a procedural motion.
Honorable Shirley. You can speak from the dispatch box. Okay, proceed then.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to move a procedural motion, limitation of debate on individual members' bills, that notwithstanding the provisions of standing order number...
Are we not on the... You have not read. Yes, please. Please then do it.
Order number 9, procedural motion, limitation of debate on individual members' bills.
Yes, proceed now, Honorable Shirley. Sorry, the staff who are not done there. It's a procedural issue also.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to move this procedural motion, a limitation of debate on individual members' bills, that notwithstanding the provision of standing order number 97-4, this House orders each speech in a debate on bills not sponsored by committee, the leader of majority party or the leader of minority party be limited as follows. A maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes with not more than 30 minutes for the mover and in moving and 10 minutes in replying. A maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Speaker, as usual, I want to just remind members what the leader of majority said, that whenever we are starting a season like the one we are in, we have to do procedural motions. And I want to invite members to look at the titles of the procedural motions that we are moving. We are actually limiting members from speaking beyond a certain period. And that's why the title of these motions is limitation. We are limiting. And I'm emphasizing on this, Honorable Speaker, because we have had members who have not had enough material to cover the entire period of moving. I want to inform such members that even if you can use 10 minutes to explain the details of your motion, then that is acceptable to the House. And even any other member who would want to support this motion, you don't have to speak the whole 10 minutes. You can as well squeeze your message, plan your message very well, and speak for even 1 minute, as long as members will get the message as clearly as the motion will demand. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, this is again, as my leader said, these are procedural motions, and this is specifically, unlike order number 8, order number 9 is for private members' bills. And it's important that you know the difference between government bills, which are usually sponsored by the committee, the leader of majority and the leader of minority, and private members' bills. This has been limited to 3.5 hours because also usually bills sponsored by private members do not take, are not as voluminous, and that's why we have limited this to 3 hours and 30 minutes for debating private members' business. Honorable Speaker, I wish to move and invite my Deputy Whip, the minority side, Honorable Chris Wamalwa, to second.
Very well, Honorable Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second, and for clarity, when you talk of private members, this is the business that comes on Wednesday mornings for purposes of clarity. And I know it's very critical because many members, Mr. Speaker, they do a lot of research, and at times they get disadvantaged when we come on this floor of the House and the priority is given to government or committee work. So it is indeed something which is very, very critical, and I'm here, Mr. Speaker, to second. Thank you.
Honourable members, I will be proposing the question, but I just want to agree with Honourable Wamalwa. Please, let every member familiarize themselves with the business of the House. Like this is very critical because there are very many private members' bills. But also notwithstanding that standing order number 97.4, through this motion, seeks to specify the time limitations. Let members also know before commencement of debate, after any motion is moved, Should the House desire to do any further limitations, including even extending the time, you are at liberty to move another procedural motion at the commencement. It's important, and I'm saying this on our members with tremendous respect, because there are too many members who keep asking me what is happening, and I start wondering whether we are in the same, are we in the same house? Please, this is very important, that this is indeed crucial, given our governance structure, private members' bills. So I will then proceed to propose the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 90, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills not sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party or the leader of the minority party, be limited as follows: a maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes, with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Very well. If it is the desire of the House that I put the question, and this is for you, it is your own business on Wednesday mornings. But as I've explained, the House is at liberty to make any amendments to this resolution. All you need to do is frame a motion which shall, until this session is over, commence by saying, notwithstanding the resolution of the House passed on 18th of February 2020, and then the rest as you desire. So I put the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 97, subsection 4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on bills not sponsored by a committee, the leader of the majority party, or the leader of the minority party, be limited as follows: a maximum of 3 hours and 30 minutes, with not more than 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 10 minutes in replying, a maximum of 30 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant committee, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be according to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, procedural motion, limitation of debate on motions.
Honorable Madi.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that, notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 97-4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited in the following manner: a maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for each other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Mr. Speaker, again, this House is permitted by our rules of procedure to impose a limit in respect of debate on any particular motion or bill by allotting a limited period of time for such debate, or by limiting the time during which members may speak in such debate, or by imposing such limitations as we are seeking the concurrence of this House this afternoon. It is for this reason, Mr. Speaker, that I'm proposing 3 hours for ordinary or special motions, with not more than 20 minutes as stated above for the mover and 10 minutes for each other member speaking, except, of course, the leader of majority party and the leader of minority party, both of whom shall have a maximum of 15 minutes, and that 10 minutes before the expiry of the debate or the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted also to echo the sentiments, and I think it is not about how much time a member has or is allocated to speak. It's about preparation. Mr. Speaker, when you want to make a contribution to a motion, a bill, or any form of a debate, it's important that you first prepare yourself very well to deliver whatever speech you want to deliver. And 10 minutes is sufficient enough if you are well prepared and organized. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I ask myself when I see my colleagues talking in political rallies, I ask myself whether we understand our roles as members of parliament. You find, like, for example, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, if we move quickly, there is a very important bill coming which has been generated from the Senate on tea matters. This is tea bill. I have been hearing many of my colleagues in political rallies, in funerals, in Arambes, asking what the president is doing for teas in their regions, and asking what BBI contains in support of tea farmers. Mr. Speaker, this afternoon is a perfect opportunity for these members to demonstrate that they truly mean well and they truly represent the tea farmers who come from their constituencies. But you'll find when that debate comes about, Mr. Speaker, this house will be near empty. And majority of those members who have been shouting loudest, Mr. Speaker, you will not find them here. And even if they are here, Mr. Speaker, many of them are not even aware that that bill is coming up for debate. And those who will be here, when you give them opportunity to speak, they will speak like laymen, like John Buddy, who has never ever come close to a tea plant, apart from drinking the already processed tea. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the time. These honorable members need to know that they have a duty. They are the policy makers. The president is not. The BBI is not. We are the policy makers. This is now the time now to speak for those tea farmers that you have been speaking for in funerals and other church arambes and many other things. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move.
Who's seconding you?
I can't ask Tangataka to second. I want to ask Honorable Chris Omalwa to second.
Proceed, Honorable Omalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second in terms of the limitation of the 3 hours. Mr. Speaker, from practice and trend, 3 hours are actually enough. And when it comes to contribution, so long as you've done the planning, there's a great philosopher who said, Mr. Speaker, that failing to plan is planning to fail. And indeed, when you're given an opportunity to speak and you have the logical flow of your points, Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt that 3 hours are good enough. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I second.
Very well. Member for Kangema, are you likely to, you come from a tea growing area, but I can see you are making your way out. I'm sure you have looked at the order paper. Honourable members, this thing is, yes, because we are likely to finish this quickly so that we can go now to the tea bill. The tea bill is coming up. So now you come to the chamber now and debate about it. So members, I propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the provision of Standing Order number 97, subsection 4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on any motion, including a special motion, be limited to in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours, with not more than 20 minutes for the mover and 10 minutes for each other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and 10 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and that priority in speaking be according to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Kaluma, I can see you want to. No, it's a valid thing, Honorable Kaluma.
Yes. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the motion in terms of timing. But, Mr. Speaker, there is an observation I made one time we went to benchmark on other issues in Philippines, in the parliament in Philippines, which I wanted to bring to the attention of the House, maybe to have the motion improved. Speaker, I found a procedure there where if a motion is being moved, there is a desk outside Parliament where a member who really desires to speak to the motion records himself, whether opposing or in support. Speaker, if there is no such recordation, then the motion is just read by the Speaker, and the Speaker confirms it is passed. It is passed. I was thinking, Mr. Speaker, that the current motion in the manner it is couched is securing too much time for motions which may otherwise not be opposed. So I'm going to support, because I don't know whether there is a room for amendment, but in future we must think of, bringing in such procedure so that if the motion has the agreement of the House, we do not consume the time in terms of debate and parliamentary resolution to debate it. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I support that limitation.
Very well, honorable members, I think, Honorable Owen Bai, you want to, but honorable members, I think what the Honorable Kaluma is just informed the House happens in some jurisdictions, as he has indicated. But I think the best route to go about that is to put it in the standing orders. I think it may be useful that those members desirous of speaking to a motion give indication in a neutral manner, because so that whoever is on the chair, all that the person has to do is to the list. These are the members who have indicated interest. Any other coming by the roadside saying that I've had something exciting being spoken is told to go and get excited on the streets. Yeah, so that we don't waste time to say that like was said by so-and-so and was said by so-and-so and the other so-and-so. Really, the House could do better. But I think it is something, is a proposal, is an idea that I think the Procedure House Rules Committee, to which I don't think whether the Honorable Kaluma sits there, but I believe the Honorable Chris Omulele is a member, and a few other members. But it is not for now, honorable members. The Honorable Kaluma has merely of the others in the Commonwealth jurisdictions, that if you are debating the bill for finance, for example, after you have done the moving and the seconding and the majority leader, any normal chairperson on the proceedings of the House would give, for example, Honorable Kimunya the first priority. He happens to have been a minister for finance, and he knows quite a lot, more than the others. The other issue, I would like to just give an example of myself. I remember, Mr. Speaker, my first days when I was in this parliament, all your panel members were actually in school, including actually one of them. I was here with his dad, with her dad. So it is normal or natural to look when we stand up, when we want to indicate we want to speak. You don't take 2 hours before you can notice normally or naturally disregarding the issue of the ranking. And the issue is, when we legislated this, as raised by Honorable Angwenyi as well, in the 90s, those who would speak for 1 week and actually cause a lot of anger. So this limitation was actually a legislation out of anger. Now, when you legislate in anger,
you don't perpetuate that anger, or you don't hold it in perpetuity. It is good, Honorable Speaker, that we change some of these traditions whereby somebody would speak for a week and then they reduce it like what we did here last week, Monday, whereby members were given 1 minute to speak in honor of somebody who had served for nearly 50 years in this country. At least 3 minutes would be the best discretion. So, Mr. Speaker, we would also wish to invite you to call upon your own judgment to make sure that in the future, we shall never have any member speaking for a minute for whatever topic it might be, because that one makes quite a lot of ridicule of the entire parliamentary proceedings. Because, Mr. Speaker, you will find the issue of 1 minute, there's not much you can say, and there is no guarantee that every member has to speak, so that you have to give them 1 minute each. Even if it is 30 members or 40 members who can go on record, at least make some sense with 3 to 5 minutes. But anything to do with the 2 minutes or 1 minute, sincerely, that should never be allowed to be part of the judgment of the chair in any debate in this House. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and be seconded by Honorable Kioni.
Honorable Kioni.
I don't know what is making this member a bit looking funny. But Mr. Speaker, as I second, I want to say that I want to agree with the mover that it is good to have this limitation of time as to how much time one can use. But even not dwelling on the 1 minute that you were given last week, at times even the 5 minutes don't quite make a lot of sense, and especially when you're dealing with people who are very fast in some areas. You feel like it is time wasted, and it's not good to feel wasted when you come to the floor. I think it is important that we look at these provisions like you have indicated earlier, with a view of improving the quality of debate in the House and even the usefulness of the time that we get or the reason of coming to this House, because without doubt there are quite a number of members who can also benefit us in a big way by even listening to them. I keep talking about the member Muru, Makali Muru, I think he's so fast in finance, and Mheshimiwa Kemunya, that listening to them also helps you improve, perhaps even in your way of articulating on some of those areas. Even this chairman of ODM, he also becomes very useful on topics, and not quite often, but quite he's interesting to listen to. And there are quite a number of such members on the floor, and I think it is good for us to appreciate those of us that when you are new when you are a first timer, you learn more from those who have been there before, and you become a better debater in the coming days. So, Mr. Speaker, I second and urge that we continue looking at these provisions with a view to making them even better than they are today. And I thank you.
Well, I think it's up to you members, because the standing orders are not made by the Speaker. If there's anything that you know, again, it's good also as we keep educating one another, or just reminding each other. The only requirement or obligation placed on the Speaker is at the tail end of a particular parliament, that as you adopt the fresh set of standing orders for the next House, there is a requirement that the Speaker has to be on the chair throughout, which is an extremely onerous responsibility, because you sit for too many hours. I'm not complaining, but it is so, Honorable Amelia, even as you make those proposals, try to look into that also, so that. But honestly, what you are saying, it makes a lot of sense. It's something that we can think of even now. We do not have to wait until we do a general review of the entire standing orders, even for orderly conduct, particularly with respect to the issues that you've raised. How do we rank members? And nobody should feel that the others have an advantage over them merely because they rank higher. If it is a fact, why would you want to quarrel with the facts? I mean, you'll be quarreling with facts. And maybe if you are lucky to make it to the next house, then you'll be ranked higher. So by now, I think everybody should feel comfortable with such a proposal. But I think, again, honourable members, that is your decision. It's your decision to make, but I encourage that we discuss it at some point. I propose the question, and again, this is something that members who may not be familiar with the procedures, which now we are right into the budget cycle. This is something that members need to begin to be familiar with. So I propose a question that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 97, subsection 4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates contemplated under Standing Orders 239 and 240 be limited as follows. 1. General supply debate. A maximum of 3 sitting days with 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 10 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees and a maximum of 5 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes each, and priority in speaking be according to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the respective chairpersons of the departmental committees in the order that they appear in the second schedule to the standing orders. And 2, Committee of Supply. A maximum of 6 sitting days for the consideration of the proposed allocations to the respective votes stroke programs in the order specified in the schedule submitted by the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Noticing nobody desiring to speak, honour members, and I hope that's a point that I'm trying to improve, that we understand, so that members understand that when you are dealing with supply, and I hope we will call upon the Honorable Kimunya and Honorable John Bandi and others, Honorable Mbalu, to educate members what these terms mean. Supply, because I can see some who are already at sea. They are wondering who's supplying what. And then general supply and committee of supply. General supply limited to 3 days, 3 sitting days. Remember, and this is a bearing on what the Honorable Mili was speaking to. Sitting day is when you count from Tuesday. The House sits at 2:30 p.m. and rises at 7 p.m. That's one day. Wednesday, because when you are in this business for private members is done away with. So Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., second day. Same Wednesday, 2:30 to 7 p.m., 3 days. And it's important for all of us to understand and be able to follow, so that when you go out there over weekends, you can say you are supplying. You can tell people that you are supplying. I was somewhere with the Honorable Mario last weekend, and we had other people saying that their work is to go and bring resources, I don't know from where. And that, again, members make a distinction. A distinction when you get to committee of supply, which now goes to 6 days. And the reason why we are talking about in general supply, the priority being given to the respective chairpersons, it's because they will be making reports of what has come from the various ministries. And speaking at that time is to avoid a situation whereby everybody is rising in their places and claiming they are being discriminated. Speaking at that time, we want, as far as practically possible, if we start with the Committee on Administration, the chairperson speaks on the various votes and programs that they oversee. I don't know, the other one is, which one? Is it administration? Is it education? Agriculture. Agriculture, yes. Again, the chairperson will speak on issues to do with the votes and programs that they oversee, in that order. Because, and again, we have tried to improve this because we noticed that sometimes some of the chairs, notwithstanding that they have taken so much time listening to what is being presented to them by the various ministries and sagas and et al., they still don't end up, they don't end up speaking on the floor of the House. To an extent that those whom you oversight think that perhaps you never understood what they presented to you. So they only wait for the resolution, for what the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee will be saying. So we have tried to improve on this so that at least there's greater clarity. A chairperson or a vice chairperson or even a member of a committee, preferably a ranking member. That I will leave to you as committees to make your own decisions. There being nobody desirous of contributing to this one, I therefore put the question that pursuant to Provisions of Standing Order number 97, subsection 4, this House orders that each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates, contemplated under Standing Orders 239 and 240, be limited as follows. 1. General supply debate. A maximum of 3 sitting days with 30 minutes for the mover in moving and 15 minutes in replying. A maximum of 10 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees, and a maximum of 5 minutes for any other member speaking except the leader of the majority party and leader of the minority party, which shall be limited to a maximum of 10 minutes each, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the respective chairpersons of the departmental committees in the order that they appear in the second schedule to the standing orders. And 2, Committee of Supply, a maximum of 6 sitting days for the consideration of the proposed allocations to the respective votes and programs in the order specified in the second schedule submitted by the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? As many as the contrary opinion say no. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 16, procedural motion, limitation of debate on the Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly.
Honorable Murugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97.1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order 146, which deals with the consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly, be limited as follows. A maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party-sponsored, and 35 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Mr. Speaker, this is a new motion that was never provided for in the previous sessions. The House Business Committee, in cognizant of its importance in guiding the House on considering of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly. We all know that there are bills which must be passed by the two houses, in which case those that are originating from this house have to go to the Senate, and the Senate may return those bills with the proposed amendments. It is in respect of those proposed amendments that we are now having this limitation motion on the debate regarding the proposals. With those remarks, I beg to move, and I do seek secondment from the Honorable Kabinga Wadhayu Washira, the member from where? Thank you.
Member from where?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to second.
Member for Nyamira. Member for Nyamira Kisi. You are still in the House. Honourable members, I propose a question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 97, clause subsection 1, this House orders that each speech in the general debate contemplated under Standing Order number 146, which is consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly, be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party-sponsored, and that 5 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further, that priority in speaking be according to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Honorable Undu, you want to say something?
Honorable Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. I think as we conclude order from A to number 16, there are pertinent issues that have been ventilated here and would want to seek your indulgence and guidance on how to proceed in the coming session, this session. Honorable Speaker, in the last 3 sessions I've been around, I've noticed that many times when movers move a motion or a bill or whatever report, they never sit in the chamber to listen to the views and comments of the members at the debate here. That's why you find many times when they come to move, they simply say, I move or I concur without putting into consideration members' views. You find that the final report or whatever amendments are moved even in the committee of the whole House do not incorporate views raised by members. I want to urge many times the movers is the leader of majority party and probably occasional leader of minority party and chair person of the various committees and probably even private members' motions or bills, that it becomes incumbent upon them to spare time and be patient enough to sit those long hours to listen to members' views, because finally we do not debate here in vain. We debate to enrich motions, bills, and whatever comes in this House. Second, Honorable Speaker, I think Honorable Millie Odhiambo and Honorable Malcolm Maura have raised the issue of ranking. Indeed, Honorable Speaker, it's a practice all over that there's a form of ranking to enable enriching any debate. But the question we need to put here in mind is that is the rankings merely based on the number of terms you have served in this House? Does it merely that you have served here for 5 or so terms makes you an expert in literally everything being debated on the floor so that you will be given the ranking? However long I serve here, it will be a disservice to this community and to Kenya for me to purport to be an expert in finance matters more than Dr. Kimunya and more than Makali Mulu. Honestly speaking, we need probably, as we debate on the issue of ranking, to look at the issues of competence, experience, and area of interest. I remember the first day we came here, we were given some form. We filled in that form an area of expertise, an area of interest that should indeed inform the issue of ranking. As I conclude, many of us know that the issue of leadership in many committees probably was never done in a democratic manner. And that's a fact that everybody knows. Many times, most of those party leaders, committee chairs, were indeed imposed by the so-called tyrant of numbers. And many times, you would notice, even the debates that happen here, the reports presented here, leaves a lot to be desired in the way they are done. That includes even the vice chairs, that includes even the membership. Probably it's a debate that we need to have, as we have clearly said, in a more relaxed manner, in a kamkunji, to literally debate and understand. Because finally, the leaders of the House leadership, one day will exit the House. As my chair has said, it will be sad, probably might not see him around here in the next parliament, but nevertheless, there must be some form of induction, training on the job, so that those who take over their positions are able to do as much as they have done, if not better. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Somebody wants to say something there? Who is this? The Honorable Mutunga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just want to shed some light on something that has been disturbing me a lot, especially when it comes to debates on matters professional and the quality of debate that we finally carry out in this House. Honorable Speaker, if we go by ranking and years in the House, some of us, and we don't know what BBI might come up with. It might propose that we have 2 terms each, and that's it. So it means that some of us might remain mingents forever. So, Honorable Speaker, I think we need that kamkunji so that we are clearer on matters debate. Because sometimes you might realize an issue is mishandled and you can never have a chance to contribute because the leadership and the ranking has not been completed. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, even as I put the question on members, I think it's good for us to also appreciate that there have been ideas that have been bandied around. One, the proposal that if the standing orders could be amended to provide a situation in which, like now after order number 17, this 18 T-bill, if there was a mechanism provided that these members, in the order that they place their requests, these are the members who have indicated that they want to contribute to the debate on this bill. That is one of the proposals. So I don't think whether Honorable Oundo and Honorable Mutunga should worry. Don't have a lot of worries, and surely because it incorporate both. As you know, honorable members, the excessively eloquent President Obama when he served in the Senate of the United States of America, he was a junior senator. But that did not stand in his way. Here, you remember, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to that. As you know, when he visited here, the Honorable John Bundy, he was in Parliament. He was hosted by the leader of the official opposition and the then opposition chief whip, none other than yours truly. So, and that's why I think he was being referred to as a junior senator. But obviously, these two ideas will go hand in hand. And even as we discuss, if we were to discuss this, I think we shouldn't ignore that aspect, because there are members who have interest in speaking generally. Even those ones, you don't deny them the opportunity to come and speak generally, because there are people who like speaking generally. So even them, they will have their opportunity by placing a request, like like any other. So you'd have to balance those two. And I think because of our sheer numbers, and also the times, the number of hours that we sit, even that is something that we need to look into. We either say that we in Kenya are too busy that after 7 p.m. we are not capable of sitting in a House of Parliament. Because how is it that it happens in other houses, in other parliaments, other jurisdictions? Something that how is it that in other parliaments they're even able to hold sessions on Monday mornings? I'm sure, were we to say that we have a sitting here on Monday morning, I would receive a lot of protests, because over 95% will be saying that we are very busy in the constituency, or that those are the days that you meet your constituents. So so all these things, and some of them are realities of our country, of the kind of political socialization that we've been given over the years. So when we discuss these issues, let's discuss all of them, Dr. Undo. Let's discuss all of them. That proposal, because it happens, none of them is new. The issue of ranking is not new in parliamentary democracies. The issue of placing requests, in fact, in a number that I have visited myself, those requests are actually placed with the speaker. I am quite attracted to the one that the Honorable Kaluma talked about. So the speaker is also kept out of the fray. If there's a way that those kind of requests will be placed, so that the speaker merely gets the list. In fact, the speaker can even come and read up front. These are the people who have indicated that they want to contribute to this business. And when it is completed, in the next business, these are the people who have placed their requests in the order that they come. But of course, in all those, there is always the question of, depending on the system of governance that you have, if it is presidential, there's no way you will do away with the positions of leader of majority and leader of minority. That you cannot. Indeed, even in parliamentary, within the Commonwealth, the parliamentary system, again, the place of the leader of government business and the leader of opposition. And in some of them, of course, the position of whip is much more critical than I think I've ever seen here. That is the leader doesn't have to deal with you. That's the work of the whip. When you have to deal with the leader, now you're in trouble. Why would you be dealing with the leader? He's too high up there. You deal with the whips and their deputies, or even their assistants. Sometimes also dealing with the whip, getting there, the Honorable Sankok, by the time you get to the whip, maybe you would have committed such a grievous crimes that, you know, yes, so maybe you would have dealt with his assistant and they would have tried to correct you. All these things, and they are all documented. In fact, in some of them, I know those reports are in the parliamentary library of this parliament, because I know I've gone through them. So, Honourable members, Honourable Mutunga, Honourable Undo, don't quite worry. And like I said, before we get there, there is always the discretion. There is always the discretion of the chair. And that is also important. Because, you know, and if for instance, a member has prepared something, feel free to approach the chair. Feel free to approach the chair and say, I have made this preparation. I think that the 10 minutes which is there for this motion, for honorable member, for any other member, may not be sufficient for what I have prepared. And I'm sure the people presiding are not impervious to reasoning. They will listen to you and give you the necessary consideration. So I think that's, for the time being, before we get to any of those proposals being put in our standing orders, let us live with what we have. So I put the question that pursuant to the provisions of standing order number 97, subsection 1, this House orders that each speech in a general debate contemplated under standing order 146 relating to consideration of Senate amendments to bills originating in the National Assembly be limited as follows. A maximum of 1 hour, 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, 15 minutes for the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee, and 5 minutes for any other member speaking, including the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, if the bill is not party-sponsored, and that 5 minutes before the expiry of the time, the mover shall be called upon to reply, and further, that priority in speaking shall be accorded to the leader of the majority party, the leader of the minority party, and the chairperson of the relevant departmental committee in that order. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. I hope members understand that the reason why this one, the time is so limited, is because this bill will have originated from here. So this House will have actually dealt with it. That's why the times are limited. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, approval of the calendar of the House for the fourth session 2020.
Majority Whip.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Leader of Majority Party, I beg to move that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly regular sessions for the fourth session 2020 as contained in the schedule. Honorable Speaker, the proposed calendar was adopted by House Business Committee on February 13th, 2020. The proposed number of sitting days is 117. This excludes special sittings and any extra morning sitting as the House may decide to have. Honorable Speaker, the calendar is informed by the following. 1, the budget cycle. 2, the finance bill. And 3, the passage of various legislative business. Honorable Speaker, the first part of the session is guided by the budget process, which has certain fundamentals, timelines, set by the statutes and the standing orders. Members will recall that the leader of Majority Party tabled the budget policy statement of this year and the medium-term debt strategy on February 13th, 2020, which was just last week. This ought to be considered and adopted by the House within 14 days in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act, popularly known as PFM Act. Honorable Speaker, we expect the Division of Revenue Bill 2020 to be introduced in the National Assembly by March 10th, 2020. The budget estimates for the financial year 2020-2021 for the national government ought to be tabled by April 30th, 2020. The Finance Bill 2020 must also be introduced by April 30th, 2020 and passed by June 30th, 2020. This is the first new feature in this calendar. This has an impact on the calendar because it means that the first and second parts of the session will be dealing with the budget and finance-related issues. This, however, uses the August and September, which were initially the months when the finance bill is usually considered. Honorable Speaker, the second part of the session is guided by the budget timelines on public hearings by the Budget and Appropriation Committee and the departmental committees which should be undertaken before the Budget Committee tables its report on the estimates for the approval of the House in early June 2020. I hope I'm clear on that because it's very important that we understand this bit of the calendar. We expect the pronouncement of the budget highlights and the revenue-raising measures between June 10th and June 17th, 2020. The Appropriations Bill 2020 should be introduced and passed by June 30th, 2020. Honorable Speaker, parliaments worldwide are conscious of the school calendars and thus try to align their calendar with those of the schools. It is in this regard that this calendar has also been synchronized to the school holidays, particularly for the August holiday. This will allow members with school-going children, and Honorable Speaker, I know many of us still have school-going children, to give them an opportunity to bond with their children. And I'm also being reminded by Honorable Chris Wamalwa that also gives them an opportunity to make others. It is also important for members to note that the days for short recess have been increased from 10 days to 18 days. We usually, in the previous session, the short recess has always been 10 days. But in this new calendar, and I am repeating this for you to notice that the number of days in short recess has been increased from 10 to 18 days. In the last parliament, the short recess was restricted to 10 days because we were still concluding legislation to implement the new constitution. We continued with this trend in the second and third sessions of this parliament. I'm almost through. Experience has taught us that there is merit in extending the period of short recess, which is the second new feature in this calendar. Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee is cognizant of the 46 private member bills sponsored in the last session. In this regard, the committee has agreed to prioritize these bills for consideration on Wednesday mornings so as to fast-track them during this session. Out of the 46 bills, 14 bills have been considered by the relevant committees and the reports tabled in the House. The respective committees with the pending reports are encouraged to expedite their consideration and table reports. Honorable Speaker, the last new item in this calendar is the annual suspension of committee sittings. Committees should take note of the suspension, which will take place from 14th December 2020 to 29th January 2021. Even with the increase of the days of the short recess, the sitting days still remain the same as those in the last session. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to move and request Honorable Dr. Kimunya, who is a member of the House Business Committee, to second. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kimunya.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second and to just highlight, in addition to what the whip has said, that this calendar is just a guiding framework. The House is at liberty to alter, and through House business, of course, to alter the sitting days and sitting times. But at least this gives people for planning purposes, to be able to synchronize the activities within the constituencies, within their holidays, and all that, so that people are not rushing to be in the constituency, they should be in the house, or they're absent from here on the excuse that they were going for some committee meeting, yet the calendar has been published for people to be able to align all their personal, private constituency committee activities around the calendar of the House, because priority is actually in the House. We are elected to be members of the National Assembly. We are supposed to be in the National Assembly, representing the people, not out there, not in the fundraisers, not in in all those public gatherings. Your first priority is to be in the House. And guided by the calendar, now people can now align all those other activities outside or during the short recesses and weekends. And Mr. Speaker, I beg to second.
Well, honourable members, I propose a question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly regular sessions for the 4th session 2020 as contained in the attached schedule. Honourable Badi.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to point out that yes, the responsibility of the House Business Committee is to come up with program and calendar of the House and how the House is supposed to conduct its business, of course with the support from the technical team. And I want to thank our technical team, which has been having very clear attention to detail and making sure that the calendar is in line with the most important activities of this House. I want to just remind the honorable members, Mr. Speaker, again, as I said here the other day, that this is the most crucial session of this House. Because after this session, I am very sure, Mr. Speaker, we may not be able to pass as many many bills as we possibly would. And this session alone, Mr. Speaker, the bills that are ready, including, I think, over 46 private members' bills, it is important that we make good use of our time. But, Mr. Speaker, one thing that the honorable members will notice is that the month of May and the month of June, those 2 months are actually the most crowded months in terms of budgetary process, and an additional responsibility which started from the last part of 10th Parliament to the 11th Parliament, now to the 12th Parliament, of making sure that appropriation bill is passed by 30th of June 2020. I mean every financial year. 30th of June, we must have appropriation bill in place. If we don't, then the country will just come to a stop in terms of operations. But additionally, now we have an added responsibility to make sure that the finance bill, which we have always been passing around September, must now be passed in the month of, before the end of June, 30th of June this year. And it is going to start for the first time this year. And we all know the implication of the finance bill. Finance bill would either impose extra burden on the people of Kenya or reduce their burden. but it can reduce the burden with the unintended repercussion of breaking the economy. So we have to be very careful. Mr. Speaker, a lot of times Kenyans have been blaming this House that we pass, especially the finance bill, that we've passed finance bill without giving it due consideration. How I wish this time, Mr. Speaker, that we engage our minds to this, especially now that we have to pass it before 30th of June. Mr. Speaker, it is my hope that the honorable members are going to be alive to all these issues. Number at this point in time is not as many as we would wish, but at least it is encouraging to see that there is still a good number of members of parliament in the House on the very first days of the session. If this spirit can continue, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure we are going to do justice to this country in passing legislations and also supporting the budget for the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Well, honour members, you know there's also a requirement that we must publish our calendar. So I want to encourage that if we pass this motion and that calendar is published, you also take sufficient copies for those of you who have more than 2 offices in the constituency, and go and pin them there so that your constituents will know when it is that you'll be on recess and when it is that you are having sessions. Yeah, it is important that everybody knows that there is transparency. So, honourable members, this we do as a matter of our own requirement. So I put a question that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 28, this House approves the calendar of the National Assembly, regular sessions for the 4th session, 2020, as contained in the schedule. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. So the calendar may be published. Next order.
Order number 18, the T Bill, Senate Bill number 36 of 2018. Second reading.
Well, honour members, we only have 3 minutes to 5:30, and we had given the House and already approved the request from the member for Tharaka, the Honourable Kitonga Murugara, and therefore, even though it's not exactly 5:30, I think it will be, it will not, I can see the Vice Chair of the Agriculture Committee, the Honourable Ijendi, is, sorry. Member for Nabakolo, not the member for Malava, is ready, but I think he will not be able to do justice to his bill. It will take priority tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, yes. So, honour members, I call upon the member for Tharaka to move his motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to move this adjournment motion pursuant to Standing Order number 33(1) of our standing orders, so that we can discuss this matter of urgent and great national importance relating to the recent invasion and incursion into the country by hordes and swarms of locusts. Mr. Speaker, my constituency, Tharaka, has had a 1 month of nightmare. A whole 1 month with the swarms upon swarms of locusts coming into the constituency and into the county from both Garissa and Kitui. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the past, and we hear this from folklore, that the worst locust invasion, similar to what we have, may have occurred about 70 years ago. It is not very certain because those days we were not as literate as we were, and records may not have been properly kept. But I am told from every community in the country, there is an age set that is identified with that locust invasion. So it dates to about 1943 to about 1950. Mr. Speaker, sir, the history we have today is that the locusts which have invaded our country originated from Yemen, a desert country in Asia. Locusts are actually desert insects, and that is why we call them desert locusts. It does appear that these locusts flew across the Red Sea into Somalia and Ethiopia, and they slowly crept into the country, those from Ethiopia attacking counties such as Turkana and Marsabit. Those from Somalia first invading Mandera and Wajir, and then going down into Garissa. Eventually, we have had more than 20 counties under attack by locusts. To name a few, the first one is my county, Tharaka Nithi, and my constituency, Tharaka. Then there is Embu, Mandera, Marsabit, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, Kitui, Samburu, Meru, Turkana, Machakos, Kirinyaga, and Laikipia. Recently, and today, I am told Kisumu is under attack in Muhoroni and Nyando areas, and that these creatures are actually about to surround the entire country. This is why the matter becomes very important for this House to discuss means and ways of not only curbing the menace, but also ensuring that in the future we do not undergo such an attack. And eventually, the country is also in need to know what will happen to those farmers who are adversely affected. Honorable Speaker, farmers in these counties are facing countless losses and damage to crops and pasture. And most important, it's crops. Crops are being mowed and we do not have much left. That has its own repercussions. And also let's talk about pasture, because locusts love to see anything green. Any pasture that is green is subject to attack. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that these locusts are not in Narok, where they may come across my colleague here who loves to wear green, because I'm certain these locusts would think that this is a mode of pasture. He would be attacked, and I'm still worried how he would ward them off. Be that as may, thank God they are not in Narok, and I pray that they do not ever visit that county. What we have now, noting the efforts the government has put in place to try and control the infestation, there has been little success. I'm sorry, what happened is we had a minister who was a cabinet secretary. Possibly we were told he wasn't effective in attacking this menace, and he was discharged of his duties. Sometimes what we are told is quite hilarious, that he actually told us to take photographs of the locusts and send them to the ministry, where they would actually assess the stage of those locusts, and they would devise ways and means of combating them. All right, that didn't appear quite attractive, and we are told it cost him his job. A new minister came into place, and again we have had a lull of about 3 weeks with these locusts, and eventually recently, when we continued with our complaints, he actually informed us that the locusts we had were too old and were going to die. that may have been the case, but unfortunately, he never told us about the most crucial stage of these insects, which is that those old ones that are dying are not just dying. It is their lifespan that is coming to an end. The net effect is that they are laying eggs, and those eggs are going to hatch into some young creatures called nymphs. And those nymphs have a big problem, because when they start consuming anything, they consume 5 times more than the adults. And as we speak today, because my constituency, Tharaka, has been under attack for the last 1 month, and I must single out a sub-county known as Tharaka North, where they actually made it their bedrock, their bedroom, and where the 2 locations of that sub-county, Kavangachini and Marawa locations, were under severe attack. Those locusts have died. But before their death, they laid the eggs, and the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture visited the place yesterday. And in the photographs, you would actually see him catching those nymphs, which means that we are now more endangered than we were before. And this is the reason why we need urgent government intervention, measures that will bring this menace to an end. And finally, what those who are affected are up to is that after the menace is eradicated, we stand to suffer hunger because crops have been destroyed, pasture has been destroyed, and what we are left with is possibly nothing to eat and nothing to graze on. So we need to hear from the government what measures, what compensation measures are being put in place to ensure that the menace does not inflict too much loss and damage on us. Mr. Speaker, let me speak about what the effects of these locusts are. First and foremost, we got excessive crop damage. In fact, it's followed by excessive extermination of pastures. And what is left behind is similar to some form of a desert. It means life is going to be extremely hard. Hardships, lack of food, lack of pasture, a drought that is imminent. Now, what do we ask the government to do? I think the level of preparedness as far as these locusts are concerned, to say the least, was wanting. It was not well prepared. The government was not ready, in spite of the fact that we were warned in November that these locusts had been spotted in Ethiopia and in Somalia. So in future, the Ministry of Agriculture and the relevant government agencies must put in place measures so that when locusts are spotted in the neighboring countries, our country is ready for the attack. And therefore, it is able to thwart, it is able to wade that attack. Now, when the locusts landed into the country and we were able to inform the ministry straight away, there was some spirited effort to spray the locusts. But eventually we were told the chemicals were exhausted, and therefore we had to wait for orders from Japan. As we waited for orders from Japan, the locusts were doing their job, which is to consume everything that is on the way. Eventually the chemicals are here, and now we are told the locusts are too old and those ones cannot be sprayed. I would call upon the government absolutely to ensure that all the areas where the nymphs are spotted, there is immediate action. And the minister has assured us of the fact that the whole of the NYS, the National Youth Service, will be mobilized. They will be deployed into those areas where these nymphs are now found, and they will be doing both spraying, aerial, mechanical, and manual. I would also add that the citizens who are quite used to spraying mechanisms, because the crops we grow, especially in Tharaka, those crops are sprayed. So the citizens are taught on measures to spray. They are given hand pumps. They are given those chemicals free of charge. so that wherever these small creatures are detected, we can actually have those eradicated. So as I move this, it is my humble prayer that we should not politicize this calamity that is facing our country. Because I heard the ministry mention that, amongst other things, we have to support BBI, we have to do all these things. BBI is for politicians, not for civil servants. Let's dwell with this calamity. It doesn't matter which side of the political divide we are in. We are all Kenyans, we are all taxpayers. May we get adequate compensation when the time comes, and especially for my constituency, Tharaka, which is one of the most affected areas by this calamity. I therefore move and plead with the government that this is actually done as we have prayed. Thank you very much.
Order members, this is a motion of adjournment, and as you know, the motion of adjournment you do not second. It shall also not be replied to. It is just an opportunity for members to speak, which I think, certainly is a very important issue. Now, there are quite a number of members who want to speak to this. The mover actually had 10 minutes. Any other person who speaks will have a maximum of 5 minutes. Quite a number of members want to speak to this, but obviously, it will be good to hear a bit from the members, especially from areas that have directly been affected. That is not to say those who are not affected will not speak. They will also speak. And of course, we have those who have, not ranking, but like a minority leader, who constitutional. But I'm sure majority leader would like to hear minority leader would like to hear one or two members, especially from the areas affected, and then we'll get a chance. Shall we start with Honorable Hurufo? Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this bill. Mr. Speaker, invasion of desert locust, I think was predicted last year by FAO, but unfortunately, we didn't take action in time. It was predicted that because of enhanced rainfall, we are likely to have invasion of desert locust, and it was predicted that they are going to migrate into our country from Ethiopia and also from Somalia. It has been ravaging the rangeland of northern Kenya for the last 2 months. Unfortunately, it only attracted attention, serious attention, after it got closer to agro-pastoral part of this country. I think this has to be stated. In its migratory pattern, it follows the wind. It is the direction of the wind which actually determines the direction in which these locusts are going to move. Effective control of these locusts requires a regional approach. If our government confines its effort of controlling this pest to our country, to within our borders, we may not be able to be effective in terms of getting rid of these locusts, because the swarms which have come into our country have actually left their eggs, which are hatching now in Somalia, in part of Ethiopia, and so on and so forth. And that is why our government, the Ministry of Agriculture, which is the lead agency, with support of Desert Locust Control Organization, has actually to seriously think about how the three governments, especially Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenyan government, can work together so that we can have control measures, the spraying of the nymphs in Somalia, in Ethiopia, and so on and so forth. To the extent that, if need be, our government supports the government in Somalia with technical inputs, and also including the pesticides and so on and so forth, to spray the areas where these locusts have laid their eggs. If you look at what has happened, in northern Kenya, it is estimated that almost close to 1 million acres of rangeland has been devastated. In the agro-pastoral areas, including part of Meru County, Laikipia County, where Mr. Speaker you come from, parts of Ukambani, Makueni. It has also reached part of Kajiado. It has also been spotted in Tanzania. It has moved into Karamoja region of Uganda. And if the wind continues blowing in that direction, there is no doubt that this desert locust will get into South Sudan. And because those countries enjoy rain throughout the year, and these insects actually like green things, the way the mover has said, we may have very serious problems in terms of getting rid of this. Already, looking at what has happened in our country in terms of the acres of pasture which has already been destroyed, the food crops which has been destroyed in Tarakanidi, in part of Makueni, Kitui, and so on and so forth, we are likely to have serious food insecurity in this country. And I would like to support what the mover has said. Our government need actually to seriously come up with a strategy, a regional strategy, as I have said, so that we can have effective controls. Another thing which is very worrying again is the fact that in as much as this, the only thing that now we are using is pesticide. These pesticides are harmful to human as well as also to livestock. It can get to our bodies through the food chain. I think we need also to think about possibilities of biological controls. They are there. I think they are well documented. If there is a way, probably our government can liaise with agencies like ISIPE so that we can think about biological control. That will also go a long way in helping us to control this. I thank you very much. I support the motion, and thank you for the opportunity.
Shall we have Honorable Jaldesa?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving us the opportunity to contribute at the same time with my Member of Parliament. Of course, you know, Isiolo was amongst one of the worst hit counties with the locust. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank the government through the Ministry of Agriculture for the intervention. Of course, I must admit that for 3-4 days, the aeroplane were in Isiolo spraying those areas. However, it was a very anxious moment for the people of Isiolo when we first saw armies and armies of the locust. And I want to take the opportunity to thank the youth and the women of Isiolo County for taking it upon themselves and ensured that they mobilized all the motor vehicles, all the drums, and all the avenues of making noise and scared away those locusts. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I will urge the colleagues from Migori and the other areas to go to Isiolo for benchmarking, because we really took it upon ourselves to ensure that everybody was out prepared with noise, and the noise really worked. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I am worried. I am worried with the report that we are likely to get the worst invasion in July. Therefore, I want to urge the government to be more prepared than it was this time. Mr. Speaker, I also came across a finding by FAO which says that a large desert locust can contain up to 150 million individuals per square kilometer. Mr. Speaker, with 500,000 locusts weighing 1 ton, and 1 ton of a locust can eat as much food in 1 day as about 10 elephants. And you can imagine an elephant eats both day and night without resting. And about 25 camels. Mr. Speaker, those of us who are rearing camels can tell you, 1 camel can eat a whole range of areas. And about 2,500 persons. And persons, not the normal person. You know those people who eat big ugalis. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we are in for a very difficult time. Mr. Speaker, the insect is reported can destroy about 200 tons of vegetation per day. And the mover has just clearly told us that these locusts are after the green vegetation. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, my worry is it is the first time the areas of northern Kenya especially witnessed the God blessing of having adequate rain. And now my worry is all those pastures will go. And you remember when the pastures go, it becomes now catalyst for cattle wrestling. It is a catalyst for intertribal fights and so forth and so forth. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I am really urging the government to be very prepared. I get scared when I listen to the CS for Agriculture, and he tells us that the yellow locusts are the old ones. Therefore, the old ones are not as dangerous as the young ones. And Mr. Speaker, as has been said by my colleagues, of course, what are we doing about the eggs that were laid, during the first time in Wajir, in Isiolo, in Mandera? And Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I wouldn't want to wish bad, but initially when we thought it was a northeastern problem, we were worried because usually intervention in northern issues takes slow, response. But now that there is equity in the locust invasion, I am happy the government will concentrate. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Well, you are raising a very serious issue, but anyway, you have the right to do. Let's have Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank you for at least allowing me to listen to a few contributions, especially from Honorable Jaldeza, who had statistics and figures that I was not really informed about, especially the capacity of what the locust is able to eat and what a normal person, I don't know what is the definition of a normal person and a normal person, but she was very clear and eloquent. I probably don't agree with her that there should be equity in locust invasion. Instead, what I expect is eradication of locust invasion in the entire region, not even in Kenya, because, Mr. Speaker, this is a regional problem that we have to admit. These locusts came from the north, and obviously northern Kenya was the first target because of proximity to those northern countries like Ethiopia, Somalia, and others. But, Mr. Speaker, we must admit that now we have a problem in our hands. And, Mr. Speaker, this problem may not be as small as we may think, because, again, those who are studying the happenings in the environment are saying we have already started spotting butterflies. And butterflies is an indication of possible armyworm invasion in a few months' time or a few weeks' time. If now you add the locust invasion together with the possible armyworm invasion, Mr. Speaker, our country and the entire region will be so exposed in terms of food security. I think this is something that we need to address and move with speed. In this era of technology, Mr. Speaker, it baffles me that we can still complain that we cannot easily contain locust invasion. And yet we are experimenting. I wonder whether the world is not interested in helping the developing countries like ours, because if Chinese could try to do some experiments which is now backfiring in human and is about to wipe the human race, instead of trying such kind of things, why can't they try to help by getting technology that can help us manage some of these problems that we are certain would occur at one point? I think, Honorable, the mover of the motion actually spoke about the worst locust invasion in about 70 years. In fact, the history I have is that it happened in around 1933. That was the worst. That is when my mother was born, and my mother was named after locust. And that is how I got to know about it. That was the time that this country ever experienced the worst case of locust invasion. Now, Mr. Speaker, we need, as a country, to devote resources to managing this calamity. Otherwise, it is going to be catastrophic to us and catastrophic to our neighbors. And of course, you can see it's invading Uganda. They're invading locusts are invading Uganda and Tanzania, and before you know it, the whole of African region, especially south of Sahara, because they're coming from up, will definitely be invaded. But Mr. Speaker, I am never superstitious, but I'm more religious, and I must say that it is the biblical, that if you read the Bible, it is clear that locust invasion always sends a very strong and powerful message. We need to ask ourselves as a country which has been invaded. I don't want to think about other countries. We need to ask ourselves, how come this region, this part of the world that has been very habitable, that has been very conducive in terms of weather, in terms of everything else, that now we are being subjected to some of these natural calamities that have been affecting other places, like excess rain at a time we never expect. Now we have locusts. Mr. Speaker, we need to question ourselves. Probably some of these things that are happening in our countries are contributing to this. When now you see even fraudsters using the second highest office of the land of the country, Mr. Speaker, to do their fraudulent activities, we must ask ourselves, what are we headed to? The next thing you will hear, Mr. Speaker, is terrorists will be running to these offices for protection. Now it is fraudsters running for protection.
Minority Leader, what is out of order, Honorable Tumchebet?
Mheshimiwa anayesimama anaongea juu ya Nsike, lakini ameenda anaongea juu ya ofisi ya pili. Sioni vile hiyo Nsike inahusika na ofisi ya pili.
Honorable Tumchebet, are you raising about what the standing order calls irrelevance? Well, don't respond to that, but Minority Leader is a ranking member, so I'm sure he knows to...
Mr. Speaker, in fact, I even had a problem knowing which is the office Apili. I don't know Apili where, in her constituency, or which is this second office. What I actually talked about is, we all know, but I was just saying that as a country, we are allowing certain things that are unimaginable, things that are not imagined at all to happen. And that's probably connected to these calamities that we are going through. Who would imagine fraudsters really having confidence to go to office of a deputy president of a country? Mr. Speaker, who would imagine that? The next thing, the worst that can happen beyond that is actually terrorists. Terrorists going to that office for protection. Because it started with corrupt individuals going to that office for protection, like Waititu, the governor for Kiambu. After that, now the fraudsters have gone to that office for protection. Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minority Leader, even though you are ranking member, you are gravitating towards what the standing order calls irrelevant. But your point is made. Shall we now get to Honorable Amalo? You can't speak before Honorable Muturi Kingangi has spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. And I just want to thank also my neighbor and friend, the member for Tharaka, for bringing this motion. As has been said by other members, these locusts were predicted in November. Then they entered Kenya after Christmas around 28th. And in 24th January, they entered Bere South. And since they entered Bere South, there was a lot of devastation. I've been living with the locusts for the last 1 month. We have shouted ourselves hoarse. We have written tweets. We have done all manner of things. The first invasion was by black locusts, kind of gray-black. We managed using all manner of innovations. We are using smoke. We are using pepper to smoke them. And even some ingenious Berians started using snuff in the smoke to make sure that they don't even land. somehow we managed to wade the first wave. Today, yeah, it worked. Today, as I talk, the whole of Bere South is covered by yellow locusts. And I was petrified and I was shocked to hear the Honorable Cabinet Minister making joke about old locusts. In one of my wards, Kiambere, the whole ground is perforated in holes which are something like 1 inch and less than an inch apart. The whole ground. Because these yellow locusts actually, I understand now, they are pregnant. And that's why they are not moving fast. And each one of them is digging about 3 holes. And for every hole, he puts 50 eggs. So every one of them is multiplying itself 150 times. If we had 2 million locusts this period, we are looking at over 300 million locusts in another 2 or 3 weeks. It's a national disaster. And that is why I was really transfixed and terrified to hear the minister make joke about the locusts. Mr. Speaker, this is a national disaster. We are facing hunger. We are facing wiping out of livelihoods for people. In Bere South, we grow millet, we grow sorghum, we grow maize, we grow green grams, and some other wonderful legumes called the roko. They are all wiped. And now we are going to the planting season. The planting season, these foods will germinate at the same time as when the locusts are coming out of the ground, the new group of locusts. We are facing a national disaster. Mr. Speaker, my contribution is that the government should declare this phenomena a national disaster. That way, Mr. Speaker, it will kick in the National Disaster Management Authority, which exists, and they have just been sleeping around. It will kick other organizations like the National Disaster Operations Center, which is operated by retired military officers. Some of them I know, very competent people. But before they are activated, they can do nothing. We need this to declare this a national disaster. That way, we can also, the parliament can also kick in to allocate resources, to allocate money, and to mobilize the whole country against this phenomenon. We cannot sit around and be told by the minister that he has mobilized 700 National Youth Service youth with 700 hand pumps. They cannot even spray one word. I think the parliament also needs to come to Bere and see what it means to have locusts. It is a locust for every inch of the whole constituency. I am appealing to the government.
Very well, Honorable Kingangi. Let's go to the far north, Honorable Lomenen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. It is classical, Speaker. Many people are still asking, where is locust? Where is locust? Mr. Speaker, locusts were there almost half a year. And one thing that we are asking here, we are asking for a solution. Not complaints, not what. We reason together to make sure we have silenced locusts. Mr. Speaker, I wonder that the national government has not declared this locust as a national disaster. But, Speaker, to ensure that we are safe, until the time locusts infest in Nairobi. When they will see offices, each office having locusts, that is when they will be serious. Mr. Speaker, it takes us time as Kenyans to save the other. Because every time when they say, oh, there are raids, nobody takes serious. When they say there is too much rain, nobody takes serious. When they say the people are anger, they will not see serious. I don't know how many locusts will authority expect to invade Kenya so that they become serious. Mr. Speaker, last week on Saturday, I met locusts. There are so many swarms of locusts. And then, Mr. Speaker, we are crying of traffic. Suppose traffic join with locust. What will you say, Mr. Speaker? This issue is very serious. I thought we say this issue of locust when crying. Mr. Speaker, sincerely speaking, us as pastoralists, the only thing we depend is pasture and the animals. But all the pasture feeds on greens or grass. But to the Speaker, the only thing when the locusts there is to make sure they compete with the goats, they compete with the shoats, ensuring that before the goat gets that pasture, it is only the locust. Make sure compete with the goat. So for how long will we be waiting to a solution? Any time we are thinking of children education, when thinking we don't say locust is a dangerous animal. Mr. Speaker, we see people busy with BBI, with Tanga, with Dongo, all those sorts. I have not seen anybody, politician, who is serious in locust. And then when he will solve the issue of locust, maybe they will form a party, say locust. I've seen that people should be serious in this house. And I think, Honorable Speaker, thank you. Thank you so much.
To my left now, but honorable members, most of you get a chance actually. We have a whole hour, and the good thing is that the time is limited to an extent that quite a number of members will speak to this, and I do appreciate, especially for the members from counties that are affected directly. But to my left now,
given me a microphone.
Honorable Balasa, who gave you the mic? Honorable Malwa. Honorable Balasa, you still get a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion and request that the government should move with speed to declare this matter a national disaster. Mr. Speaker, I was reading the Bible in the book of Exodus, Mr. Speaker, and this needs some biblical intervention. And I want to read, Mr. Speaker, the book of Exodus 10, verse 4. The Holy Bible says this: if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I'll bring the locusts. Mr. Speaker, when you move from that verse to the same chapter, verse 12, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch your hand on the land of Egypt for the locusts, so that they may come upon the land of Egypt, so that they can eat every herb, Mr. Speaker. And it happened. From the biblical interpretation, Mr. Speaker, locusts are there as a sign of punishment. Is the Lord punishing this country, Mr. Speaker? And this is the time we must seek the spiritual intervention as we try to look for the biological scientific solution. This is a time we should get back to God. We should repent, Mr. Speaker, because this is biblical, and you cannot take this for granted, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've read so much about Benjamin Franklin. He was one of the management scholars from the United States, and he said this, that failing to plan is planning to fail. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that had raised by FAO, the Food Agriculture Organization. It gave a notice, Mr. Speaker, that this locust, but the government of Kenya, who is responsible for the welfare of Kenyans, did not take any action, Mr. Speaker. Now we are reacting instead of being proactive. Mr. Speaker, we've had bodies like ISIPE, the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology. What are they doing? I'm told they had also given a warning before, Mr. Speaker. When you go to the University of Nairobi, the School of Biological Sciences, this is a time we expect scientists to come up, Mr. Speaker, with some strategies that can be able to eliminate these locusts. Locusts come to destroy. They destroy everything that is green, Mr. Speaker. I'm told they've reached Kisumu. And on the way to Kisumu using the plane, Mr. Speaker, I'm told some landed in Rift Valley, in Kericho. They'll come to Kitale, the food basket of this country. When we talk about food security, Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter. When I listen to the cabinet secretary in charge of agriculture, Mr. Speaker, saying that this is a matter that should not be declared national disaster, I was shocked. Why you declare it to be a national disaster, Mr. Speaker, so that you can be able to mobilize resources for purposes of trying to control. Already we've been told they are in almost 50% of the counties in this country, Mr. Speaker. And in terms of the geographical coverage, it's almost 75%. This is indeed a serious matter, and we are calling upon His Excellency the President. He's the CEO of this country. This is no longer a laughing matter. It's not an issue of saying that these have reached the lifespan. At the end of their lifespan, they're going to die. We are told in terms of multiplication, Mr. Speaker, they produce in the hundreds. Tomorrow they'll even come to Parliament. This is the time that we should not wait. This matter should be declared a national disaster like yesterday. And we must be able to move with speed to mobilize resources, Mr. Speaker, so that we can be able to counter this matter. It's not a laughing matter at all, Mr. Speaker. When C.S. Kiunjuri was sacked, I saw the cartoon on the newspaper, Mr. Speaker, him being carried away by the locusts. Maybe very soon we'll see another locust with Kimunya, because he has not sorted out the problem. We want this matter to be resolved.
Order, Kimunya is a member here.
No, I
Where
said
will the
Munya.
locust?
The CS agriculture, of course, is not Kimunya, it's Munya. Mr. Speaker. Yes, some things, logistically you can be able to see. So it's the highest time, Mr. Speaker, that the government should move with speed. We should look for emergency funds. In this country, Mr. Speaker, we have emergency fund. That emergency fund, what is it doing? It is lying in treasury. We should deploy those funds, Mr. Speaker, so that we can be able to counter these locusts. If not, Mr. Speaker, Kenya is going to have a problem. And you're calling upon the spiritual leaders to come in terms of spiritual nourishment, Mr. Speaker, so that we can be able to save this country from the calamity that is going to come very soon, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Honorable Mutunga.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to the debate. And I thank the mover of this motion that really locust is a serious problem in this country. Honorable Speaker, we have a desert locust control center in Isiolo. And what that center is established for, and it is funded by the government every year, is to monitor the movement of the desert locust, nothing else. So they are able to know, they should have been able to know that locust is just about to cross the border. Honorable Speaker, locust migration or locust invasion occurs as a result of increased rainfall and the period, the length of the rain period season. We were therefore not caught unaware. We were aware. We were only negligent. Honorable Speaker, I just would like to put a few facts to rest. First of all, mature locusts are yellow, but they are not yet in copulation stage. Copulation meaning they are not ready to lay eggs. They feed gregariously. A gregarious feeder is one which can feed as much as the body weight in a day. So if you see a locust that can feed its body weight in a day, it means if you have swarms of kilometers, because we have square kilometers, 15 kilometers by 30 kilometers, that's what we are experiencing on our speaker. Those locusts, when they get bright yellow, that is the signal for copulation, this is the signal for laying eggs. And that is the point at which, therefore, they will take about, it can take up to 2 months to lay eggs. So we cannot wait for 2 months for them to die. They will have caused a lot of damage. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, a mature locust can feed up to between 35 and 50 days, on average 40 to 45 days, which means that they are very destructive at this stage. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that we have a serious problem, and this problem, Honorable Speaker, luckily I was incorporated in the group that is controlling locusts early enough, and I've been monitoring this. So I'll tell you from the depth of the truth that there is. Locust invasion has not had the commensurate control or support that we expected. The private sector moved in because their farms were threatened. Therefore, it was a private sector affair initially before the government actually put in the efforts that the government has already put. So we would like to thank the private sector for coming in, donating their planes, fueling the planes, and using the chemical. Initially, the chemical was not effective. They were using malathion, which is not effective, until when they realized that phenithrothion is the one that is effective. Honorable Speaker, we could delay this problem and be in a more serious situation than we are right now. I would like to join my colleagues who are calling for a declaration of national disaster, because locust invasion at this point in time should actually be looked at as a national disaster. We need to mobilize resources from the strategic resources that are kept for emergency response. To declare a national disaster, Honorable Speaker, we need to be able to assess the levels of destructiveness, which we have been able to do over time. We need to know the intensity and the effect thereafter. We are facing a crisis, and we are a food insecure country. Locusts will eat all our food, they will eat all our fences, they have eaten all our pastures, the animals and the people will die at the same time. So we do not want to face a crisis where we are looking for food, and we could as well control this by declaring this a national disaster early enough and using the resources to be able to control the locust. When locusts get into the cropland, they burn the cropland like fire, because crops are a bit more susceptible than the rest of Honorable Speaker. So there are key issues that we need to look at in this particular respect, and advise the government, whoever it is that advises the government on the disaster declaration process should take effect immediately, advise the government to declare national disaster, put effort into quantification of what losses are, and start the process of recovering those people from the losses. And Honorable Speaker, we need to move with speed, otherwise we will not be able to support our people when the locusts ravage everything. When locusts get into areas that have got trees and a lot of population, we shall be risking the lives of the people. The chemicals that are being used are used at ultra low volume rates. It is possible for even the mixing of the chemical to be mistaken, and somebody can use higher volumes, which will therefore lead to susceptibility where the people are concerned. And we might have other crises coming in as a result of in the process of trying to control the desert locusts. Honorable Speaker, let locust invasion be declared a national disaster yesterday. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next shall be Honorable Eshomo Maison from Saburu.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kunipatia nafasi hii, na pia napatia Mheshimiwa hongera kwa kulete hii taarifa ya nzige. Mheshimiwa Spika, kulingana na wenzangu vile wameongea, hii nzige sio leo ndio wameanza kuja. Nzige silikuja kitambo sana. Kuna wakati silikuja akati sa ukoloni. Na akati siliingia Kenya akati ya ukoloni, nzige ina madhara mingi. Ina madhara mingi ya kukula miti, matawi na kukula nyasi. Baada ya hapo kuna ugonjwa itawashwa ya ng'ombe. Kwa hivyo ile tunalia zaidi, tunalia kujua hii ni disaster mbaya zaidi. Hii ni kitu imestua sisi wale tuna wanyama, wale tuna ng'ombe, tunajua baada ya hizi nzige kwisha na dawa ama kwisha na njia yote italeta ugonjwa ya ng'ombe, kwa sababu ukiona Tumetembea pande ya kwetu east, north rakati zilitokea zikaingia kwetu kwa pande ya Marsabit. Hizo nzige ni nyingi sana. Na pia bila wenzangu wamesema ni inasaa kila baada ya masaa mawili itakuwa imezaa. Na wakati inamwaga hiyo mayai, hata ukisimama wewe mwenyewe hapo, wakati sinapita ama wakati sinaamuka, unamwagiwa hiyo mafiao na wewe mwenyewe unakuwa nyeusi kama makaa. Na hiyo ni wanamwaga hiyo mbegu yao na wanawacha hapo chini. Sasa tumestuka sana kwa sababu nzige ina ugonjwa ile tunaogopa. Tunaogopa hata sasa. Na pia ningependa kusema pia hii madawa pia inamwagwa. Mara ya kwanza wakati walimwaga madawa haikuua. Baada ya kuua, badala ikufe sikaanza kuchuka chini. Na wakati ilichuka chini pahali imechukia chini kwetu, inafagia bila tarakta inafagia. Unapita hapo kama yani tarakta ndio imepita. Yani utaona nyasi hata moja. Kwa hivyo tunajua ni kitu italete shida katika Kenya nzima kwa sababu inahama. Na ikihama ile imesaliwa pale, ile mayai imemwagwa pale ndio tena sinaamuka. Sasa ningependa tu kusema kuambia serikali yani wangeamuka kuangalia, na pia wanafaa kuangalia ile dawa pia inakuja kumwagwa nayo, kwa sababu tunaogopa pia hata hiyo dawa pia kama itapimwa vizuri, hiyo pia inaweza kuleta shida. Kwa sababu unajua ikimwagwa dawa huko juu, hiyo dawa pia inamwagikia chini. Na pale hiyo dawa tena tumeona ikimwagikia chini inakauka. Inakauka straight, yani nyasi inakauka. Sasa lazima tuko na shida, lazima iangaliwe zaidi kwa sababu hizo nzige itatembea kila pahali kuna joto. Pahali ijafika kama Turkana na pande hizo zingine tunahakika istafika. Kwa sababu sinatambaa pahali kuna joto. Kwa hivyo ningependa tu kuomba kusema hii ichukuliwe maanani kabisa, ijulikane na serikali hii ni kitu mbaya zaidi. Mbeleni wakati ilikuwa wakina baba yetu wanatueleza wakati silikuja, ilikuwa sikifika pahali sikilala hapo inachomwa. Kwa sababu inajulikana hiyo mavi yao na hiyo nini yao itawasha madhara tena ya ng'ombe na ng'ombe zitakufa mingi. Na hiyo ugonjwa tena wamelete tena ya ng'ombe. Kwa hivyo inafaa iangaliwe zaidi na haraka badala ya kuongea ya kusema tunangoja dawa sijui itoke wapi. Hizi zinatambaa tu haisimami. Kwa hivyo kwa maoni yetu tungesema hii ichukuliwe kama ni kitu mbaya na ichukuliwe ni kitu inaweza kuleta maradhi pande zote. Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia hii nafasi.
Honorable Chanda.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are a casual country, very casual. Both the people and our governments, we are very casual. And the way we deal with things, we deal with them as though they don't matter much, even when these things touch on our livelihoods at the core. There's a big problem in the country, Mr. Speaker. I don't understand why we get warnings. I don't understand why we have institutions for purpose of early warning, because they are never taken seriously. I don't understand why we need to place resources in this kind of institutions. We never take them seriously. And as at now, when there is an outbreak like what we are seeing in parts of the country, the rest of the country, even if you check on the social media, the people are just marveling. They don't know what's happening. Some think that this will never get to them. When they're seeing it in Embu, they're seeing it in Tharaka. To them, it is for Tharakans. They don't believe that this thing can extend to their areas. And then the government that is supposed to be helping in everybody understanding what this thing is all about, and causing some level of preparedness, coordinating some of the useful and needed activities for purpose of control, is not doing anything. Right now, when you're talking about this being mentioned that is spreading out, going to other places, if you imagine that even those countries that we are talking about, now somebody was talking about Moroni or Kisumu and the rest, since the last 2 months, what is happening in Kisumu? What is the level of preparedness of Kisumu as a county? What is the government doing for purposes of making sure that this thing does not spread to other places. When you get the way even the minister, the cabinet secretary responding to some of these things. Today I was seeing in the newspaper that NYS has been taken to destroy eggs. Yeah, the eggs in Marsabit. Yeah, that they've gone to destroy locust eggs in Marsabit. So you wonder, how did they get to lay eggs in Marsabit and they didn't declare that locusts were in Marsabit? So there's a big problem. It's a big problem. We are warned of rain, we are warned of famine, we are warned of all manner of things, we are warned of terrorists, we are warned of everything else. Nobody takes care of these things. Until we come in too late, when we have wasted a lot. There's not going to be any food in this country. The rains have caused havoc. Now locusts are causing havoc. There's no food anywhere. Because the food basket are under the weight of the rains that have been drenching the country. They didn't harvest maize properly because maize were drenched. There's no food. And the cost of food in this country is making everything else to be impossible. The cost of all manner of commodities is getting higher and higher. So where are we going to go as a country? There's a big, big problem, Mr. Speaker, that we really need to check. If the government cannot, then I want to believe some efforts need to be placed, even privately, that some of these things are looked at. We are in a big mess. The locust will spread. When it gets out of Marsabit, when it gets out of Embu and Mbera, where they have exhausted the green matter, they'll move to the other places where the green matter is. What will we have in the end? So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say is that the government needs to recheck its relation with the early warning institutions and needs to think through these things properly. This idea of fighting, this idea of engaging when disasters are in sight, I think is costing this country too much, and we can't wait for this forever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kimani Kuria.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this chance to address this matter that has been raised very well by our honorable colleague. And Mr. Speaker, I take this as a constitutional matter. Chapter 14 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, provides that it is the responsibility of government to protect its citizens and its people against internal and external threats to Kenya's territorial integrity and sovereignty, its people, their rights, freedom, and their property. And Mr. Speaker, if a country then cannot protect its people from any invasion of their property, then that government, Mr. Speaker, is not doing its mandate as mandated by the Constitution. An even bigger threat, Mr. Speaker, is we have an invasion of locusts in the country. We seem to be saying we have not been able to deal with it because we tried taking photos, it didn't work. We tried spraying them, now they are too old. What does that mean to the confidence that Kenyans should have of their government to protect them? In the world, Mr. Speaker, we're dealing with this coronavirus from China. And Kenyans are asking, God forbid, if that virus makes it to Kenya. Because if you cannot deal with locusts, if you got something in the magnitude of such a virus, then what would happen? Or we therefore be told that we don't worry, we are too old, we can die, and then the virus, we don't need to worry about it, Mr. Speaker. The reason why Kenyans contribute to taxes, most importantly, Mr. Speaker, according to my tax laws, is because the government is supposed to provide services to people that people are not able to provide for themselves. The services that the private sector is not able to provide is what is a major concern of people, and that is one of the basics why people pay their taxes, Mr. Speaker. And if we cannot therefore protect that, then as a country, we don't even have a basis collecting these taxes from Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. One of our biggest budgets is recurrent expenses. And this recurrent expenditure of the government, Mr. Speaker, 80% of them goes to payment of salaries. I dare say that, Mr. Speaker, we have the most qualified professionals in the public service. That if you want the best engineers, if you want the best experts in pests and control, in whichever field that you choose, we'll find those people in the public service. But the fight against this locust, Mr. Speaker, we've seen it more of a fight of the cabinet secretaries. And every time, whether it is the former cabinet secretary or the current one, they speak, then you even wonder whether there was any consultation or any advice of a professional before they gave their views, Mr. Speaker. Which therefore begs the question, the way our ministries operate, is there engagement in this with these professionals? Those scientists that are doing research at Kenya Research Institute or at KEFIS or wherever else these institutions they are, is there a time that their opinion is sought, that the discussion is held and they are expected to give their opinions, Mr. Speaker? The Ministry of Agriculture, we allocated to the Ministry of Agriculture around 52 billion shillings this financial year. I looked up some of the sagas, Mr. Speaker, that could help in this fight of this locust. And I was able to see things like sagas like Agriculture Development Corporation, Agrichemical and Food Company, Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Services, Pest Control Products Board, and many other government agencies that, Mr. Speaker, could easily form an intergovernmental response to this, Mr. Speaker. But we have not seen that. We've just seen people flying with helicopters around the affected areas, purporting to spray them. And even that spraying, Mr. Speaker, serious questions have been raised on the actual cost. The allegations, Mr. Speaker, that some of those owners of those ranches in Nanyuki were renting those helicopters at 60,000 shillings an hour, but that has since been increased to more than 200,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker. I end by saying that we have a responsibility to protect the property of our people. And we need, as a government, to give the people that confidence. Because if we don't, we have no business being in government and we have no business collecting taxes from them. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to state clear that I support this motion. This is a very good motion. Honorable Speaker, Kenya is not the first country in the world to be invaded by a locust. Definitely, there are other countries of the world that were first to be invaded by this locust, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, government has spent colossal amounts of money on benchmarking trips that are irrelevant, Honorable Speaker. Even at times, we go on benchmarking to learn how to cook, Honorable Speaker. But we cannot find it very necessary that the government takes a trip to the countries where these locusts are said to have migrated from, Honorable Speaker, so that we know how those countries were able to deal with these locusts, Honorable Speaker. It is disheartening, Honorable Speaker, when a Minister of Government says that these locusts are now yellow, they're only waiting to lay eggs and die. Honorable Speaker, it's only God who knows whether the eggs that the locust will lay will hatch or not. And Honorable Speaker, one locust has the capacity to lay 80 to over 80 eggs. And if these eggs are going to hatch, Honorable Speaker, we are looking at a scenario where these locusts are going to infest every part of this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the interests of Kenyans are ventilated through this House, and it is the interest of this country that these locusts are combated once and for all, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this country relies on agriculture. And if these locusts are going to find their way into the agricultural parts of this country, then that will be a disaster, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to urge you, and I know you have the powers, Honorable Speaker, maybe by your direction, this country is going to be saved of these locusts, Honorable Speaker, And I will want you, Honorable Speaker, by the close of this motion, Honorable Speaker, that you order that the CS for Agriculture appears before this House to be able to tell Kenyans what plans he has put in place to ensure that these locusts are killed and we save this country from these locusts, Honorable Speaker. Because from the time that these locusts were reported to have arrived in this country, we have not been told any success stories. This means, Honorable Speaker, that the interventions that are being implemented now, they are not workable, Honorable Speaker, and we must change tact, Honorable Speaker. It's only by the CS appearing before this House that maybe we expect more reasonable statement coming from him, Honorable Speaker. Maybe because at times he's a politician, maybe at times he was carried out by the people he was addressing to tell them that Kenyans should not worry, that the locusts are yellow and they are only waiting to lay eggs and die. What about if those eggs are going to hatch? You have not done a research on the environment where these locusts are going to place their eggs for you to be able to come up with a conclusion that those eggs are going to hatch, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if the agricultural economy of this country is going to be destroyed by locusts, Honorable Speaker, I want to tell the CS and his team who have the responsibility of safeguarding this country against these locusts, Honorable Speaker, that his predecessor left riding on a locust, and he can as well be a candidate for impeachment if he will fail to combat this local, Honorable Speaker. So I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I support this motion.
Honorable Balasa, you raise a very serious point because this is a serious matter. I expect, and it is expected actually the relevant committee should have picked up this matter if they haven't, and to have the CS actually appear that relevant committee and deal with this issue. It's a serious issue. I expect probably that is happening, and if it hasn't happened, it is expected that the relevant committee should have picked up this matter. But also, the members, the contribution from the members, even from the floor, just speaks to the reality and the seriousness of this matter, as the members are speaking to. Shall we have Honorable Ms. Ziggy Nene?
Shukran Mr. Speaker, hata mimi kunipatia fursa ili niweze kuchangia swala hili la nzige. Ama kweli Bwana Speaker, mvua ilinyesha na mvua kawaida ni baraka. Na tunajua kama Wakenya tumepitia awali kipindi kigumu sana cha ukame ambapo hata watu wetu wengine ilibidi waishi kwa kupitia chakula ile ya msaada. Na basi wakati mvua imenyesha, watu walijitupa mashambani na wakalima kwa bidii. Na inaleta wasiwasi sana Bwana Speaker, wakati tunasikia ya kwamba mazao ambayo tulikuwa tumetarajia yatavamiwa na kuliwa na wadudu hawa ambao ni nzige. Bwana Speaker, wengine wetu hapa tunatoka sehemu ambayo mvua hiyo ambayo ni baraka ilidhuru watu kwa sababu kulikuwa na mafuriko na mashamba na mimea mingi ambayo tulikuwa tumetarajia ilioshwa. Na kwa hivyo mimi nikisimama hapa kaunti yangu ya Taita Taveta, hao nzige hawajafika. Lakini sipati usingizi kwa sababu tunatarajia chakula kutoka kwa wenzetu ambao wale wamevamiwa na hizo nzige. Ndiposa tunasema kwamba hili jambo ni la kuchukuliwa kwa dharura kubwa sana. Ni jambo la dharura. Na inatakana kwamba suluhu mwafaka ipatikane kusuluhisha hili jambo la hawa nzige. Na pia mimi nitaunga wenzangu mkono ambao wameongea awali kusema kwamba ni wakati sasa hili swala la nzige litangazwe kama janga la kitaifa hapa nchini Kenya. Kwa sababu kupitia mifano ambayo nimetoa awali ya vile watu wamekuwa wakikosa chakula, na saa hizi vile mvua zilinyesha na hakuna jambo linafanyika ama suluhu ambayo inayofanywa bado haijakuwa mwafaka. Basi ni vizuri kama nchi tuseme kwamba ni janga la kitaifa, na basi watu waeke vichwa vyao, idara ambayo inahusika ziweke vichwa pamoja ili tuweze kupata suluhu ambayo ni thabiti ya kuweza kutusaidia kupambana na hili janga. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia fursa hii kuweza kuchangia, na nampongeza mwenzangu ambaye ameleta mswada huu ili tuweze kujadili hapa. Asante.
Honorable Ibrahim Sahal.
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I rise in support of the adjournment motion to discuss the locust invasion in the country. Mr. Speaker, the ongoing invasion of millions of locusts in part of the country is causing terrible destruction and massive land degradation, economically damaging rangelands, croplands, and most families are losing their livelihood. Mr. Speaker, experts have warned that East Africa countries should brace themselves for a second round of invasion by the desert locust in the next 2 months, since the swarm of locusts, which had spread to 7 East Africa countries, have been laying eggs along their migratory path, expected to hatch between March and April. Mr. Speaker, while standard procedure calls for fumigation by spraying a chemical in the air, this strategy creates another vital problem to animals and other important insects that complement ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, thus the use of poisonous air pesticides model is highly discouraged, and we call for the government to embrace alternative idea which is practically safe, secure, sound, and environmentally friendly. Secondly, conduct a damage assessment with a view of compensating the affected farmers. I therefore support. Thank you.
Honorable Jesile. That member seems to have taken leave. Next is Honorable Muchangi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to this very important motion from Honorable George. Tharaka County borders Embu County, and from our constituency, Runyenjes, we can hear about how the desert locusts have badly hit our neighbors. And it is time the government declared this a national disaster so that it is given the attention that it requires. Actually, Mr. Speaker, this is a threat to the economy because, Mr. Speaker, it being a problem in the region, it cannot be a small matter for this country. So we would like to see the government assuring Kenyans that enough is being done to cushion the rest of the country from this invasion. Mr. Speaker, I have seen the CS for agriculture move from one invaded area to another, and even taking photos of the locusts. And it is time the CS took a trip to one of the countries where there is a success story about fighting these locusts, so that he can come and help the ministry and the country to end this menace, because soon we are going to have a big problem in our country. So we want to urge the government and even the president to urgently assure Kenyans that enough is being done so that our people do not suffer in the near future. Locusts, like I have said, are in the 2 of the 4 constituencies in Embu. And they are not choosy. They are eating everything. And I don't want to imagine what is going to happen if these locusts move into every other constituency. It is a problem so big that we need the government to move with speed so that we do not have a bigger problem in the future. So I support this motion and I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shall we have Honorable Nakala Lodepe?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I join my fellow members to say that this is a calamity that we need to see how we can solve it before it clears all our vegetation in this land. Honorable Speaker, according to the scientists, this insect belongs to the kingdom of Animalia in the class of Insecta, which is very dangerous. It consumes a lot of greens wherever it goes. Honorable Speaker, this insect have caused a lot of damage in the plant, and also it has made economies of some counties to be down. Honorable Speaker, very recently, these insects have invaded Turkana. Yesterday, I was in my constituency, and one of the head teachers called me and said it has invaded the village where the school belongs to, and it has affected even education in that village called Chokochok. Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with the speakers who are saying we need the national government to intervene because the county government may not have resources. This is a very big issue that if you are told we are going to leave only the county government to deal, they may not actually solve this problem. So we need the Minister of Agriculture to declare this as a disaster. It's not a shame to say that I'm defeated, I need outside assistance so that donors can come in. If you don't have the money, the donors can send the experts to see how they can compact this insect. The donors can give funds so that we can try other means to solve this problem. Honorable Speaker, the problem we have in African countries is that you don't accept that you are defeated until you lose many lives. So, Honorable Speaker, for me, I want to agree with the member of the Rakanidi, who actually are affected seriously with other members, that we should not take this as a political gaining mileage. Just you go there and make a public announcement and you tell people we can stop this. It's not. This life and death of our people. Like now, Honorable Speaker, in Turkana, the livestock prices have gone very low. You can now get a goat that they used to sell at 5,000. They are now selling at 2,500. Because of this insect, it has cleared all the green. So, Honorable Speaker, when our communities have no purchasing power within their own hands, now they make them vulnerable. And again, Honorable Speaker, even the food that the government used to take to the hard counties, they don't give nowadays. That was another problem. So this insect again has added more problem. So, Honorable Speaker, we need to take this issue seriously, and as you have seen the members actually discussing this issue with heavy heart, because at the end of the day, when our people lose purchasing power, they come back to leaders, they demand from us, they take from us, and that make us poor. So, Honorable Speaker, we need to see that our country, as much as we are trying to run away from the reality, we need actually to face this as a disaster, and then we look the way to solve this before it goes to agricultural places. Now it only affects the warmer places like Turkana, Iselo, and other places. But if it gets the heart of Kenya, there will be no control at all. We can lose many things. Our economy will go down for a particular period of time. So it's better to prevent. We better try other means that we can prevent them from going further to the agricultural areas. Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with honorable members who say that when this kind of problem comes, we must have those institutions which give early warnings. Before we reach this situation, we must have been told that we are expecting this and that for this particular period of time. Why are we having those institutions in this country and we are not getting early warnings? Honorable Speaker, for me, I think this country needs to wake up, and the Minister concerned must be called here to tell us what are the things he has put in position to prevent this calamity before it consumes a lot of our people. I support. Thank you.
Shall we have Honorable Tepo Koropu? from Isiolo South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, Kenya is a signatory to an international convention that established Desert Locust Control Organization of East Africa. This is a regional pest and vector control organization with a mandate to promote control and techniques to control upsurge of desert locust. Mr. Speaker, members of this organization include Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, and Sudan. Mr. Speaker, why I mentioned this is I thought it's important to know to bring to the attention of this House is that one, we know this locust did not originate from Kenya. It migrated from the neighboring countries of Ethiopia and Somalia. Then, with a regional organization that is supposed to monitor, we expected the information to have been available to Kenya so that action is taken. So the question I beg to ask is, as a member, were we advised of the dangers of locust invasion by the Desert Locust Control Organization? If not, then Kenya needs to look at its position as a member of this organization. If information was availed, then the question this House and the nation needs to ask is, what action was taken? How was that information absorbed? How prepared are we about the fact that locust was invading our country? Mr. Speaker, early in late December, when locust was sighted in my constituency, I brought this to the attention of one, the regional organization, Desert Locust Control, by calling their CEO. Secondly, I brought the same to the CS and PS Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, at that point, it was unfortunate that there was only one aircraft that was serving Marsabit, Isiolo, Wajir, Mandera, and Garissa counties. Only one. In the part of surveillance, we were asked to send out scouts, identify where locusts are, and give the GPS location. Mr. Speaker, note that these are flying animals. We had to provide fuel for motor vehicle riders to scout around and provide GPS location. At that particular moment, I asked the government officers, why can't we provide a second aircraft? Why can't we provide a third aircraft? Because if left unchecked, these insects will move into the breadbasket of this country, and it will have some devastating effect. Mr. Speaker, I asked, why can't we have a surveillance aircraft? Mr. Speaker, fortunately for this country, there are those of us who come from what used to be called the Northern Frontier Districts. Yes, agriculture-wise, crop-wise, it is not high potential, but with a vast area, if the officers were prepared, then at that particular point we could have acted. It would have been a buffer against the current devastating effect that we are feeling in this country. Mr. Speaker, no action was taken, or minimal action was taken. We as a House need to interrogate this matter. We need to investigate what an investigation needs to be done on why action could not be taken at the stage where these insects invaded this country, and as a matter of urgency, the government, the president needs to declare a state of emergency. This is an emergency that we need to channel all our resources so that more devastation could not happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shall we have Honorable Kigano?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must congratulate my colleague member for Tharaka for bringing this matter It was long overdue. Mr. Speaker, there are certain factors that point at very serious, culpable negligence on the part of our government regarding the Locust. It is not, they cannot claim it's an act of God, because if you Google, you will find that as early as November, FAO gave warning, early warning, that with the rains, there was going to be an onslaught of locusts. Mr. Speaker, the US contributed 1 billion shillings to FAO, targeting locusts invasion in East Africa. 40, 50 years ago, we founded Desert Locust Control Organization of East Africa. Kenya contributes about 1/3 of the revenue, funding revenue to that organization. There is no question of shortage of funds here. FAO is there, the UN is there, Coordinating Committee on Locusts. We've not been told that there was a shortage of funding. It is purely a question of negligence. So, what we should now be looking for, the first thing we should be looking for is comprehensive remedy through either a committee or commission of inquiry to inquire into this so that it cannot be repeated again. Number two, we should compensate, the government should compensate every individual resident of Kenya who has suffered as a result of this onslaught, so that in the future, matters like this cannot be taken for granted. And it is becoming a day-to-day events. If you look at Uganda today, they were warned about it, or they saw it coming 10 days ago. They have taken remedial cautions. And Uganda only contributed to that East African organization a week ago. They were in arrears. So that, yeah, they had not contributed. They had fallen in arrears. But to facilitate the assistance by the Desert Locust Control Organization of East Africa, they paid their dues. And now they have taken measures to control any possible onslaught. So I can't see why this cannot happen in Kenya. We have funding outlay to that. We have funding outlay to FAO. There is a department, there is a section in the Ministry of Agriculture specifically targeting locusts. It is not the first time. In my childhood, we used to have them. And they were all eliminated. The pest was eliminated by then IACSCO, East Africa Common Services Organization. That is the body that built Desert Locust Control. Thank you.
Shall we go to my left now, Honorable Makali?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me join my colleagues in thanking the move of this motion and say that Kitui County is actually one of the seriously affected counties. We've suffered locusts in fashion. And what is worrying us, Honorable Speaker, is that unlike other areas where they're just invading once and they disappear, Kitui County, the northern part of it, we have actually realized 3 times in fashion, same area. And it is causing a lot of damage to the crops and also the environment. And the challenge we're having, Honorable Speaker, is the issue of spraying, even though it's been kind of promoted by the government, has some adverse effects to the environment. So the ecosystem has been really destabilized. And I have in mind, Honorable Speaker, the issue of bees. You know, our area is a honey-rich producing area. So what is happening because of this, as we spray the locust, we also end up killing the bees, and so there's a lot of damage. And Honorable Speaker, I agree with those who are saying, this country needs to move from being reactive to being proactive. I think with all these early warnings which we got from the experts, if as a country we really took them seriously, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I think the challenge we want to push to those who are in charge is that when we get these early warnings, Honorable Speaker, it is important that we take action. It is important also, Honorable Speaker, and I think all of us from Ukambani region will support this. We would wish that this was declared a national disaster, because people are suffering. And Honorable Speaker, anytime I sit here, and I see as a country pushing one of the big four agenda, the issue of food security. And then we have this challenge of rockers which go to destroy the crops. It is automatically we can't achieve that big four agenda of food security. So as a country, I think, Honorable Speaker, we need to go that extra mile, that we really do what it takes to make sure that we control this locust in fashion. And unless we do that, Honorable Speaker, then we will actually be doing all what we are doing in vain in terms of talking about the big four. It is going to be expensive to this country when we are reactive. It can be very cheap if we go proactive way. And I want to encourage all of us to push the government to go the proactive way. In that case, we'll be supporting. The other point, Honorable Speaker, is...
Order, Honorable Makali. It is 7. I'm afraid you didn't get your full allocation of the 5 minutes, but look, it is 7, and the House must really rise.
Okay, thank you.
Honorable members, well, that was an important motion, but members, I'm sure quite a number wanted to speak to this, but time is limited. But it's also good to note what Honorable Balasa earlier raised, actually, about the relevant committee picking up this matter, because I think it's a very important matter. Honorable members, the time being 7 p.m., this House stand adjourned till Wednesday, 19th February 2020 at 9:30 p.m. a.m.